All right. Thanks for joining us. Just as a quick reminder, Mike, we're going to start off with the regular agenda to take order, roll call. Then we're going to proceed with closed session, which is the link in your invite. And then we'll come back to open session for the special meeting and the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, I heard it. I was actually on, but I just couldn't. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. All right, with that, City Clerk, would you please take roll call for the August 20th meeting, starting officially at 9:06 in the morning?
Councilmember Bredefeld. You got me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Chavez.
Here.
Councilmember Esparza.
Present.
Councilmember Karbasi.
Here.
Councilmember Soria.
Here.
Vice President Capriolio.
Here, thank you.
President Arias.
Present. With that, we'll go to Pledge of Allegiance. City staff, do we have the Pledge of Allegiance video?
Gavin, are you online?
Gavin's not in the office, guys.
Okay, so then no, Council
don't have it.
President.
So let's move on to the next item. Approval of the agenda, City Clerk. Are there any changes to the agenda for August 20th?
Yes, it is. Quite a few. The first one is the 10 o'clock, number 5. It is a continued hearing to consider annexation application number P19-02239. It's being continued to August 27th at 10:05. The next item is item 1W. It's approved the appointment of Mr. Don Simmons to the Historic Preservation Commission and appointment of James Sponsler to District 3 Project Review. On that one, we need to add Mayor Brand as a sponsor for the Historic Preservation appointment. The next item is item 1, Diaz and Davis. It pertains to actions pertaining to Tall House Park. Council District 4 is being continued to August 27th. The next one is 10 o'clock, number 4.
All broken up.
It's a hearing pertaining to Sierra Sky Park. Council District 2 is being continued to September 17th, 2020 at 10:05 a.m. The next item is the 10:15 item. It is scheduled communication. It should be the appearance by Shar Khan and Kim Castro to review the Declaration of Independence. The speaker requested to be removed from the agenda altogether. Then there's the 10:40 item. It's a hearing to consider a plan amendment, application number P19-04226. And it's being continued to September 17th at 10:10 a.m. And then there is the 10 a.m. number 3, which is a hearing to adopt resolution and ordinance to annex territory and levy a special tax. And that item is being continued to September 17th. And then I have the following items being pulled. The only thing being pulled is item 1U as an umbrella, and that's the per capita grant funds, and that's being pulled by District 3. And the last change is moving items 1E as in Edward and 1V as in Victor to 8/27/2020. And that's being requested by the Council President. Those are all the changes I have.
Motion to approve the modified.
Madam Clerk, I have a,
Second.
Okay, I got that.
for item 10 a.m., number 5, that's not coming back until September. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do any council members have changes to the agenda before we make a motion to approve?
I'm sorry.
Do any council members have changes to the agenda? Seeing none,
Motion
approved by Council Vice President Capriolio and second by. All right, with that, roll call.
Hey, Council President, are we doing consent right now, or is that separate?
Just setting the agenda.
Okay.
Roll call
Okay.
to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, Councilmember Bredefeld. She's mute.
Muted.
Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
I don't think either that or they're totally ignoring us.
Councilmember,
I'm a yes. I'm a yes.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
and President Arias.
Yes. All right, the agenda is set by unanimous motion. Now we're gonna proceed with closed session.
Yellow, which means.
Then you will go to your invite for closed session and we'll proceed in closed session.
Would you like me to announce it?
City Attorney, can you please read out the closed session agenda items, please, for the record?
Yes, in closed session, I expect them to be in this order. Litigation, Perez versus City of Fresno, Centeno versus City, Isaiah Mureta Golding versus City, Terrence Frazier versus the City, real estate negotiation, Pride Park, public security, and also labor negotiations, all units, and Unit 2. That's it.
All right, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council on the closed session items?
Council President, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I believe City Manager Kwan is trying to chime in. Can you hear us?
Yes, but give me a second here.
Did they
Is there any
heard me
member of
when
the
I did
public that
roll
wishes
call?
to address the council on the closed session items read? The attorney? Seeing none? All right, council, go ahead, city manager.
Potentially ignoring me, honestly, Council President.
City manager, we can't hear you. It's really bad, the audio.
Static.
It's been tabled and we wanted to chime in before you voted.
Again, your audio is really bad.
Can we pause the meeting then until we
I
can?
think she said she wanted to chime in before voting on the agenda.
Thank you.
Can you pause and let us get fixed, because it was fine earlier.
I suggest we wait till the clerk gets it sorted out.
City staff and city manager, your audio is really bad. All we're hearing is screeching. So we'll rediscuss this when we come back from closed session. Let's proceed with closed session, and hopefully by then you guys can get your audio. All right, council, I'll see you in the closed session room. Thank you, man. All right, council, we're going to go ahead and reconvene to the open session of the meeting, and we're going to proceed with our special meeting notice, specifically with item B, the resolution for extending the COVID housing retention grant program period for the rental assistance from June 2020 through December 2020. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
Motion.
Motion by member Soria, second by member Chavez. I'm going to go out to the public for any comment on this item. Is there any member of the public wishing to address item B as in boy with the expansion of the criteria for those applying for the housing retention program throughout December of this year? All right, I have one person. You will have 1 minute to address the council.
Council President, you're on item B on the special meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
B as in boy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council member. You will have 1 minute, Jonas, to address the council on item B as in boy. Go ahead and proceed.
Yes, can you hear me? Good afternoon. Yeah, this is Jonas Palos, homeless veterans advocate. I just want to tell all of you, thank you very much. People are hurting, including my veterans. We had 3 deaths last week. I'm really devastated. They took their lives. These are stuff that I'm dealing with, and I'm trying to heal at the same time. So I just want to tell all of you council members, just remember that. You know, these guys are coming back really messed up, man. And there's no help. So thank you for doing this. I know I ask a lot, and I don't say thank you, but I'm telling you, I'm really wounded because the stuff that I see every day, and the homelessness just spiked. So thank you very much. God bless you all, and let's continue to help our community, especially our essential workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. The next person will be Lisa Flores. You'll have a minute to address the council on this item. Proceed, please.
Hi, Lisa Flores here. I would just like to see more money. And how many people will be helped by this? Do you have a number yet? what is the estimate? And also too, what is there a way to expedite the funds getting out to the public? Because it appears that it's slightly slowed down by your administrative process. Is there a way to kind of expedite it maybe? But anyway, thank you for giving money to those to stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores, and you're welcome to contact our staff and they can follow up with you with those questions. Next person is Genova Morales. And for the record, we do have a Spanish interpreter available on the line. Go ahead and proceed. You can address the council. Morales?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. My name is Giovanna Morales, and I'm with Leadership Council. And thank you for the opportunity to comment. We are excited to see the city moving forward with its commitments from the CARES expenditure plan adopted in late June. We are overall supportive of these allocations and contracts, and especially those with experienced organizations and entities who have a presence and relationships in the communities hardest hit. With limited staff time, capacity, and expertise, we recognize the city and other public agencies cannot tackle this pandemic alone and should be looking to leverage its partnerships and collaborations as it is today, especially with a deadline of December 31st looming ahead of us to expense the entire $92 million. We need to make sure these dollars are allocated and expensed in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Brandy. You have a minute to address the council. Please proceed.
This is just very brief. I just want to also express my approval and support of extending this with the things that were mentioned by the previous people. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Council, we return to the council for a roll call vote. City Clerk, proceed.
Councilmember Bredifield?
Comment?
Yes, Councilmember Bredifield.
Yeah, a question on this. We're extending this through December to the end of the year. What if the emergency that has been declared is taken away, is rescinded in October, is rescinded in November? I've supported this before. I will support it again as long as the emergency is taking place because it is for emergency needs. And I will support it as long as it continues to be an emergency. Can we add language in there that this will continue as long as the emergency remains in effect? And I can support that.
All right, Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
Yeah, Councilmember Bredifield, I just want to, I totally agree with, your point and your concern about that. The only thing that we're hearing from our CBOs, and a lot of folks have become unemployed. So even though the emergency may be lifted, they are still unemployed as a result of the pandemic. So because we do have the resources, we want to be able to make sure that those resources are available through the end of the year if they're truly still being impacted because they can't get a job due to the pandemic. So that was the reason why.
And I understand that, and that makes some sense. But what happens if October, the emergency order is rescinded, and somebody then says in November, December, oh, I can't pay because of something that happened in September? I mean, how long does this go on? And that's the problem. This becomes something that can go all the way to the end of the year when next month, I mean, God willing, it would end.
Yeah, the fact is that folks are not going to get a job from one day to another. There's going to be some folks, and we want to be able to help. What we're trying to prevent is homelessness, people being evicted, landlords not getting their money. And so I think this is essentially creating a safety net so that we prevent homelessness, and folks the small mom and pop landlords that depend on these rents can also survive during, this crisis that is in front of us. We have the resources. We have $92 million. What we want to do is make sure that we're creating a safety net to help the folks get through this pandemic. And the emergency may be lifted, in 2 months, but remember, there's after effects of this pandemic and the emergency.
But then till February, till March. I mean, this could be indefinite then.
Yeah.
No, yes, but the resources are available till December. That's why we wanted to align it with the deadline that the federal government has for us.
So if I may summarize that the federal government has given us till December of this year to spend the CARES Act. The funding source for this program is the CARES Act funds. So we wanted to align the deadline that the federal government has given us to the program itself. All the other efforts that we've done on relief have been aligned to that December deadline. So we want to make sure we're consistent. But I do recognize your point that the emergency order may be lifted earlier than we expect.
Okay.
I would say there's ample historical evidence to suggest that neither the pandemic nor the economic recovery nor the economic damage will subside, before the end of this calendar year. I just that would be wild. I think based on any calculation you make, even if we do turn it around, we certainly won't arrive there by December 31st.
All right, Councilmember Carbasi, you'll have the last word unless there's any other questions.
Sure. No, I think the deadline's for some reason December 30th. I don't know why, but that's what the official deadline is. So I think we all support this. Just to clarify, then, what happens? Let's say, because the issue is the deferral. When does the deferral end? Will this extend deferrals as well, or is it just the aid program that we have?
I don't think
this just extends the program. We're not talking about anything
Yeah,
else.
see, so there, I really think there's no reason to extend it to the end, at least to December 30th. There's really not a problem because people, it's actually like Councilmember Soria said, it's going to help the landlords recoup some of their funding too, and it helps people not end up homeless. So, yeah,
right.
I think we're good to go.
Thank you, council members, for your questions and comments. Now we'll go to roll call.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza.
Got me.
I got you.
What did I say?
You said yes. You changed your mind?
I did. You heard something, but yes, I'm a yes.
We're all in code you.
Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi.
Yes.
Councilmember Soria.
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes. Thank you, council. Now we'll move item to the special meeting, item C as in cat. This is council, the appropriations of the money. We're not yet going to discuss the contracts. Those are the following items. This is simply the appropriations of the money from the bucket of CARES Act to the appropriations of these areas. So if I may have a motion for the item.
So moved.
Second.
Redfield, second by member Chavez. I'll go to the public. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment on the appropriations of these funds? Again, we're not discussing the contracts yet, just the appropriations of the allocation. Brandy, you have the floor for 1 minute. Please address the council.
Hi, I want to bring this up before because it might be directed to how you guys speak to the other ones. I wanted to speak this morning to talk about these contracts and ask that you speak to the providers and ensure that they are going to do regular COVID testing at the Poverello House area in Santa Clara, as well as other areas where the homeless are, and do frequent mobile outreach to the camps. I'm heartbroken to learn that one of our street family members over near the Poverello House has contracted COVID, and I know is not doing great, and others are exposed, and any actions are a little late, but I want to ask that you, in these conversations for the next items, ensure that there is regular testing and that there's outreach to the camps throughout the city. And I yield any remaining time to Des, which I guess.
Thank you. All right, council, we'll return it back to the council. If there's no discussion, I'd like to take a roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi.
Aye.
Councilmember Soria.
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Yes.
And President Arias.
Yes. Thank you, council. Next item is D as in dog. It's the approval of an agreement with Building Healthy Communities awarding CARES Act funding for testing, tracing, and quarantine support, as well as prevention support to City of Fresno residents. I will now consider a motion to approve.
Motion.
Member by Chavez, second by member Soria. We will go to a public before we return back. Is there anybody from the
President?
public? Yes.
Councilmember Carbasi has. his
Yeah,
hand.
I'm
before
sorry.
I was going to ask if the organizations or if you guys can give us like an explanation of how the money is going to be spent and what the program is at some point. I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Can we do that after public comment?
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the public for comments on this contract specifically. Anybody from the public wishing to address the council, I have a minute. First up is Ruben Espinoza. You have been unmuted. You have a minute to address the council.
Hello, council members. I'm joining the meeting today in order to ask you guys to extend some of the money to support COVID testing to our homeless, especially the site of Santa Clara. One of our homeless is contracted COVID-19 and they do not have any support to get tested or to get quarantined. And I think as a community, we are only as strong as our most vulnerable members, vulnerable communities. And I would love to see our homeless get more COVID testing, more money afforded to that cause. Thank you, and I yield the rest of my time back.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. The next person is Des Martinez. You have been unmuted. You have a minute to address the council on this item specific to the contract with Building Healthy Community.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Des, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding healthy communities, I believe that healthy communities, they're leaving out a huge part, which is a lot of the most vulnerable here, which is the homeless. I would love to, actually, I would like to demand to use some of this money for testing for COVID. We're 6 months behind. We have, you guys have set up a lot of other agencies to go out and do drive-through testing. Nobody's ever thought about the homeless, but they complain about the homeless. And I think a healthy community would be all of us. And that includes the most forgotten part of the community. As everybody's mentioned, Jerry Mulford, very well known and around the Santa Clara Street area, has had 4 testing, came up negative. He was taken to the hospital last night because he was losing consciousness. Come to find out, he now has COVID, which could have been prevented if we would have had healthy communities and COVID testing down at the most vulnerable site in the largest encampment in Fresno County is Santa Clara Street area. And it's unhealthy. The feces, the urine, the trash, I mean, the buildup, it's so unhealthy for them and the rest of the community and the district and the people that live around here, the people that have businesses around here. They're forgetting about this part. They're forgetting about this part. And we need health things going on. It's an unhealthy community down here. And I want to have this money utilized for COVID testing down around the Poverello House and Fresno Rescue Mission area, which is the largest encampment that you guys have here
Thank you,
in
Des.
Fresno County.
Thank you, Des. Okay. Now we'll bring it back to the council to address member Carbasi's request. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Sandra Saldron, the CEO of Building Healthy Communities. Sandra, you've been unmuted. If you can provide us a overview of the proposal and how you plan to execute. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members, and thank you, President Arias. Again, my name is Sandra Celedon. I'm here representing the COVID-19 Equity Project, which is a collaborative effort between 17 community-based organizations, the city and the county, as well as our medical partners. The COVID-19 Equity Project really relies on a community-based approach to prevention education, contact tracing, and direct support to community members impacted by COVID to help fight the spread of COVID. The partner organizations that are included include Fresno Building Healthy Communities, Fresno State Central Valley Health Policy Institute, Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministry, Centro Binacional Indígena Oaxaqueño, Yocara Movement, Cultiva la Salud, Go Fresno, the Fresno Center, Reading and Beyond, Centro La Familia, along with the African American Coalition that is under the Fresno BOC umbrella, that includes West Fresno Family Resource Center, Cultural Brokers, St. Res, CDC, Take a Stand Committee, and Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. And all of these organizations are coordinating the efforts to make sure that we have countywide reach including the City of Fresno. All of these partners are trusted community-based organizations. Collectively, we represent 12 languages that are spoken and predominant in our community. And all of these organizations have deep experience utilizing the promotora or community health worker model. And so there's three primary components to the project. One is that it relies on providing and creating health education curriculum that is culturally appropriate and adapted. Fresno Building Healthy Communities is working directly with the Central Valley Health Policy Institute at Fresno State to develop the training curriculum that includes public health principles, contact tracing, and education specific to COVID so that community health workers have up-to-date and relevant information to enable the response efforts, and also includes covering efforts around food, shelter, financial assistance, mental health, and other resources that are available to ensure that we're able to launch and conduct the second component of the project, which is strategic community-led prevention efforts. This project relies on over 100 specialized community health workers that are either already or are being hired from the neighborhoods that we will be reaching out into throughout Fresno County to provide high volume health education, one-on-one and small group engagement, promote testing clinics. We are coordinating with UCSF to help enable mobile testing. That also includes a focus on enabling and providing testing for homeless populations. And so the community health workers being at these events provides that connection as well to coordinate efforts with our institutional labor and medical partners. And then the third component is about direct quarantine support. So the community health workers will connect and stay connected with community members who test COVID-19 positive, and will coordinate direct financial support to enable community members to follow isolation guidelines to reduce COVID transmission in the Central Valley. So those are really the three primary components of the project that really rely on, again, this cross-court collaboration between coalitions and the Public Health Department, the city, and all of our medical partners. So I'll stop there for any additional questions or comments that I may respond to.
Thank you, Mrs. Saladon. Can you just provide us a quick reminder of how much the county contribution is to this collaborative?
Yes, the county contribution for this collaborative is a little bit over $5 million combined between the coalition that's under the Fresno BHC umbrella and the Fresno EOC umbrella. And so this is a joint effort between the county and the city to make sure that we're able to have that countywide coverage for all of the communities that are collectively represented between the 17 organizations.
Thank you. With that, we'll return back to the council with Member Carbasi. You have the floor. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. Council President, I just want to clarify from Monday's meeting, for all of our contracts we're going to approve today, we aren't just going to give it all in one lump sum, correct? It's going to be more of a pay-as-you-perform type of scenario?
Correct. Based on your feedback, council member, the COVID committee has recommended that we include language on all contracts that we do with outside partners that provide the fiscal safeguards, which will say up to this amount, and the payments will be done in installments as they get the work done. So that's how we've been doing it with all the relief efforts. It does create a little difficulty for the organizations because they have to manage their cash flow, but it does provide the city a safeguard to ensure that the money is being spent appropriately and in a timely manner.
Thank you.
All right, with that, do we have any comments from the rest of the council on this item? Councilmember Bedapil, I see your hand. You have the floor.
Yes, as with most of the other items, I have no problem with this. I have a problem giving $2 million of taxpayer money to on and an organization for many reasons. First of all, she's doing the contact tracing, quarantine support education. We're giving her $2 million. EOC is doing similar type work, $800,000. Yeah, but having said that, first let me say the reasons why I don't support this. First, they know nothing about contact tracing or quarantine support and are only being given this contract because she's connected to friends who are on the council. There are plenty of other people who could be doing similar type work. Second, on May 27, Sandra tweeted, "Burn it down." That's a quote, "Burn it down," as Minneapolis and the police station was being burned to the ground. Now, she obviously supports burning healthy communities, not building them. Third, she's suing the city over Measure P, costing the taxpayers a great deal of money to defend this frivolous lawsuit. And lastly, she'll be contracting out services. She has no experience in this critical area, and any business could receive similar training and contract out those same services. Awarding $2 million to this organization and Sandra Celadon, as far as I'm concerned, would be outrageous, complete misuse of taxpayer money. Having said that, I have some better ideas. Fresno State in District 4 has a nursing program without the BS, MS, and a Doctor of Nursing. I think they could use $2 million, and they could certainly provide contact tracing, quarantine support, and education a whole lot better than this organization. In District 1, there's Fresno City College. They have an Associate of Science degree in nursing. They have an LVN and an RN degree. Plenty of nurses and students that could be doing this work. UCSF in Fresno. Yes, we have a medical program in Fresno that trains MDs and physician's assistants. 250 medical residents annually, 50 subspecialty fellowships. Now, the VA where I worked is in D7, the Community Regional Medical Center in D3. All of these medical programs could use $2 million, could do contact tracing and quarantine support and education. Now, I'm calling out the media to take a look at what's going on here, because we've got $2 million doesn't mean we give it to friends. There's better ways to do this. And so my motion, if I can make one, is to give the $2 million spread across those three programs, UCSF Fresno, FSU, and Fresno City College, to do the very same services and to spread it out equally. That's my motion. I suspect I won't get a second.
All right. With that, council, is there any other comments before we take a roll call? Seeing none, let's roll call.
Council President, I've been patient.
Oh, I'm sorry, council member. I thought we were going to hear you after we were done with the FI.
Well, I'm not supporting D as it's presented to us. I was very specific in my reasoning in our Monday meeting. Nothing has changed. In my practice as an attorney and representing individuals, businesses, entities as an attorney, and generally from the council's perspective, my perspective, I don't give money to people that sue me or my clients or my community or my university or otherwise. So for that reason, I cannot support this specifically. Generally, I discussed this with member Bredefield, and I can safely say he stole my thunder because I indicated to him that I was going to make a motion that Fresno State be involved with this. I've had extensive communications with President Castro. He's already involved. They want to be more involved, and that would be the better use of the money from my perspective. So with that in mind, I'm not going to support D. I would second the motion to spread the wealth to these other organizations. And then I have a question for City Attorney Sloan. Doug, are you there? Doug?
There we go.
He's probably
Yes.
muted.
There we go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So for me to support, I guess it's a procedural question for Member Bredefield as well as myself, to make that modification to item D. Can we do that with a motion, or do we have to have notice and reschedule this? Procedurally, what would you recommend?
So this is on the agenda. You can make a motion to amend the item to replace the contractor with somebody else.
Okay. Then I will wait to make another motion after the vote on Member Bredefield's motions.
So Councilmember,
Thank you.
motion is a motion to amend the item. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what Member Bredefield just did as per our discussions last couple of days. Is that right, Gary?
Yes.
We didn't hear a second to that motion.
I made the second.
Okay.
All right, so your motion is to amend the contract, remove THC and all the 17 organizations and replace them with Fresno State? Am I understanding your motion?
No.
Can you state
The
your
motion is to,
record?
Gary, may I step in for a second? I think what I am seconding is that we remove F, Fresno Building Healthy Communities as they're the one that's going to dole out to these different organizations. So I think the motion is to eliminate them and put in the appropriate educational facilities that are well qualified, which does not in any way, shape, or form preclude the sub-organizations that will actually do the work that we're paying them to do. So it does not impact them, not at all. Am I right, Gary?
Well, what I would do, Paul, is remove BHC. BHC is getting the contract, and I guess they're subbing out to whoever they want to sub out to. Once we remove them, we are putting in charge these three medical facilities, and they can sub out if they need to sub out to whoever they need to sub out. So in essence, we are removing BHC. We are awarding $2 million to UCSF Fresno, to Fresno State, and the City College and their nursing and medical programs, and they can then determine how they best can do the contact tracing, quarantine support, and education.
Hey, gentlemen, just for procedure purposes, I want to make sure you guys, for the record, get your motion and your second correctly and clearly stated. So if you can, without the speeches, just give me the motion.
I just gave it to you. I just said it very clearly. The $2 million awarded to those three medical programs. Fresno
The
State.
motion, I want to repeat it, Gary, just to make sure we're all clear. The motion is to remove BHC as a contractor and replace them with Fresno State, UC San Francisco, and Fresno City College.
That is correct. And to award the $2 million there for them to do the same services.
Understood. And just my question, have you guys confirmed with those departments that they're willing to take on this contract? And have you confirmed with the 16 other organizations that they're willing to continue this work?
I don't need to consult with whoever BHC was contracting. This is an agreement between the city of Fresno and BHC.
I know. What I'm asking, Gary, is have you confirmed with Fresno State, Fresno City College?
Offering this, Miguel, we're offering this. This is my motion. This is the direction we want to go. Councilmember Capriolio has spoken to the president of Fresno State. If the other two organizations are not interested in doing these services, they can say no, and then we move forward. That's what.
Point of order. I think that his question is important, Councilmember Bredefeld, because you're asking me to vote on your motion, yet you don't have a proposed plan. You're just saying kind of, out from the air that these folks may be willing to. We've had some initial conversations. There's nothing concrete. It's not in writing that that they actually have a plan. These groups have actually been working to put a coalition and create a collaborative together. Fresno County has already partnered with them. We are trying to do things in alignment with the county so that we're addressing the populations that we're trying to address. I do take issue to the fact that you say, oh, we're giving contracts to friends. No, I'm not. You don't know who my friends are, obviously. No, you don't. And so I take issue with that because every single other Thursday, you are voting on contracts that I can say they're your friends, they're your developer, they're your business friends. So,
Council President, I call the question.
That you make those statements, and I do take offense to it. And so I'm going to speak out against it because I don't think that it's accurate. And I want that to be reflected in the record that I'm not just voting for friends. That's not why I'm voting for this contract. I'm voting for this contract because they're on the ground already doing work in the community. They know our families that are hardest hit by this pandemic, and they have the experience of addressing these types of issues. So that is why this contract and this collaborative is extremely critical.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm going to go to Councilmember Carbasi, and then we'll go to the question. Councilmember Carbasi, and then Councilmember Chavez, and then we'll go to the question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think the elephant in the room here is going to be the tweet. And I'll be very frank, and I publicly condemned that tweet. It made me very angry. It offended me. It offended a lot of people in my district. But I'm not voting on that tweet. I have to put my personal bias aside and do what's right for the community. The fact of the matter is this organization, whether we agree with the politics of the organization or not, has a lot of buy-in with the community. And they're able to provide a service that perhaps some others can't. I love the idea of UCSF and Fresno State and Community Hospital being involved, but that's not a proposal we received from them. In the future, if they come forward, we're already partnering with UCSF. I'll look at that. But right now, the question is, can we put our personal feelings aside and do our duty? And that's what I want to do today. And I apologize if some of my colleagues disagree with me, but this is not about that. That's a separate issue. So I'm going to vote at the matter at hand, and I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. We'll go to Councilmember Chavez and then go for the question.
Appreciate the conversation. And I understand that things are a little bit emotional. We might not like what somebody, has tweeted, but I think this is an opportunity for the city to see that what we're trying to do, and truly the intent of this, is to help people get resources. We know that time is of the essence. We have record cases going up, people out of work. And I think right now is a time for us to try to really work through a lot of these differences that we have and make sure that those folks have the resources that they need. And for my colleagues, I think it would help if we kind of walk them through the process where all these proposals were vetted, not just through the subcommittee, but through legal and through our administration's process into a database that specifically addresses whether they're reimbursable or not. And so if that proposal comes, later through that same process, we can vet it. And if it's worthy and it's merit and it helps people, more than willing to support it. But I think today we need to move forward with the proposal we have on the table, because as soon as we vote to support this, we know that those folks can deploy and get boots on the ground, which is what we really need in our communities right now.
All right, we'll go to Councilmember Bredefield as the last comment before the vote.
Okay, first of all. No, you'll hold on. You're going to let me speak after him. Thank you. Okay. First of all, the county has not voted on the 17 organizations yet. My understanding is they're voting next week, so nothing's been voted on regarding that. Secondly, this has not been vetted. I mean, people are talking about vetted. This was given to us last week, and the big complaint from many council members that are now supporting this was that we didn't have enough time. That basically these were just people selected by a subcommittee. I had no input on it. Councilmember Carbasi had no input on it. No, just the subcommittee. So people were selected that they're comfortable with, but there are plenty of organizations out in our community that have been ignored. So when you say there aren't friends, there are connections here, and that's why they're selected, because there are plenty of people outside that have not been selected that would like to provide the same services and love to get $1 million contracts from the city of Fresno. So that's just a fact. And I'm offering a proposal for medical facilities to do it. And if they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. We know that Fresno State and Councilmember Capriolo has had conversations. We talk about that with Fresno State. Tell me these students at City College, these physicians in training wouldn't want to be involved in helping people with COVID-19. It just makes sense. I mean, it's completely logical, but instead had a subcommittee pick people that they know. And there are other people out in the community that can do a much better job and are trained to do this. And instead we're giving it to somebody who's suing the city and wants to burn down healthy communities. I'm sorry, it's insane.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Vice President Capriolo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. In reference to the comments just made about experience or non-experience, Fresno State currently is in contract with the County of Fresno, our partner in this situation. And they're doing testing in the lab, they're doing the tracing, they're doing all the things we're talking about in conjunction with the county and with the community. So they are already boots on the ground. Their boots have been on the ground. So it makes perfect sense to allow Fresno State to be the lead and confirm and expand what they've been doing. They've already got the partnership with the county. They've already got all this in action. All the people on this list, despite what's been said, have no action experience on boots on the ground, any of that. Fresno State can say that with authority because it's the actual truth. So that's why I'm encouraging supporting of this for that particular reason. The other aspects of it that you guys have all gone into, that doesn't help my community out. But Fresno State is in the middle of the community, middle of Fresno. They're ready to go. They have been going. It's been ongoing. So there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't include them in the contract.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Let's go with roll call, Councilmember Carbasi, if you don't mind, and then we'll come back to the vote.
Okay, so we're voting on the last motion.
We're
first.
voting on the motion to amend the original motion. That is a motion. So a yes would amend it to remove BHC and replace it with several institutions. A vote no would kill the motion.
Okay, Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Friendly, no.
Councilmember Esparza.
No such thing.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
I said no such.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurbasi,
Of course, there's friendly no's. I make a second friendly no.
Councilmember Soria,
A triple friendly no.
Vice President Caprielio,
For now.
Yeah.
and Council President Ari.
A nail in the coffin, no.
I the only mean no.
All right, with that, let's go to the original motion to approve the contract as submitted and proposed. Is there any comments on that, Council? Councilmember Carvalho, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just to clarify, again, we allocated the funding for this type of expenditure, but we're not dishing out all the money today. I love the idea of Fresno State. I have no plan. But Mr. President, it's possible for Fresno State to come in like everyone else and say, hey, we'd like to do this and submit the proposal to the process, correct? That is an option.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, let's do roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
An unfriendly no.
Councilmember Chavez,
Friendly, yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
A neutral aye.
Councilmember Kurbasi,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria,
Yeah.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
No.
President Arias.
Spanish C.
Hey, passes 5-2.
The contract carries 5-2. And I just want to reiterate to the council, we did award UC San Francisco $5 million to do testing. We have Fresno State is a partner in several of these endeavors, and any organization is welcome to submit a proposal to the city for any of the activities that were approved in the COVID expenditure plan. So if anybody wants to submit a proposal, direct your attention to the city manager's office, Aldi, and we can accept the proposal and consider it as we have all the other proposals. With that, we'll go to the next item, item E as in Edward. I will hand this off to Councilmember Chavez after we get a motion to approve in a second.
Motion.
Second.
All right, motion by Member Chavez, second by Member Esparza. I'm going to go out to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to address the contract on hand? If so, please identify yourself. Tanya, I see you up. If you want to speak on item E as in Edward, the agreement with North Fresno Primary Care, please do so. You'll have a minute to address the council.
Sorry, that was.
There you go.
No, that was a mistake.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, I see no other public speakers. We'll come back to the council. Is there discussion on this contract? Seeing none, let's do roll call.
Just for the record, these folks are not my friends, but I think it's a good contract.
Have they tweeted anything?
Since we're all disclosing, these folks are not my medical doctors either, and I've only met them once on Zoom when we reviewed the proposal and engaged in a 2-hour back and forth on the proposal with city staff, as we have with all these, proposals that come before the council and the COVID committee. So there is no, we're not all related, and we don't all are in the same circle of friends. This is on the merits of the proposal, and more importantly, the need that the Fresno residents have for screening, medical testing, and medication for those who are uninsured essential workers. As you can see from my background, even during a pandemic and a firestorm, our farm workers are still out working. And unfortunately, the vast majority are uninsured and don't have the ability to just walk in any hospital and clinic without coming out with $1,000 bill that they can't afford. So this is going to go a long way to making sure that our essential workers that are uninsured receive the same medical treatment and testing that any other member of our city and our essential workforce receive. With that, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio. You're muted. President Arias.
Yes. Next item, which we have official recusal from Councilmember Chavez on, is item F as in Frank, is the contract with Fresno EOC. Jim, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you. So let me just take a motion and then we'll get back to you.
I'm going to recuse myself on this item, President Arias.
Yes, for the record, let the record show that Councilmember Chavez is recusing from the item. His video has went off and he is not participating in the discussion of this item. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
EOC?
Motion to approve.
All right, Councilmember Vice President Caprielio made a motion, second by Member Soria. Let me go out to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to address the council on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll come back. Is there discussion? Jim, I see your hand up.
I can wait till the motion or the vote is.
Oh, thank you.
Just want to talk about the process.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, there's no discussion, so let's do roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
Yes.
and President Arias.
Yes. The item carries. Councilmember Chavez, we are back online. If you want to get back, we are back online. So you can pop up your video and involve yourselves in the meeting. Before I go to the next item, I'm going to give the floor to our Assistant City Manager, Jim Shudd, to just explain the process for
Just
organization.
really quickly, we just this week sent out some instructions for how to submit requests or proposals for the CARES Act funding. And that involves a few documents, and council members have been traditionally entering those into our SharePoint system once the proposals are submitted by the entity that is intending to make that proposal. That will allow Aldi and other staff to get them prepared for the council subcommittee. So if you have any questions on how that process works, you can reach out to Aldi or myself.
All right, thank you, Assistant City Manager Shad. With that, council, we're going to go to a workshop regarding a potential agreement with Pardini's Catering for the implementation of a senior aid and food resource program that's being sponsored by Council Member Karbasi and Council Vice President Caprielio and Chavez. Councilmember Karbasi, you have the floor.
Still don't see Mr. Neptune showing up.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to introduce today for your consideration, just as a workshop, the Senior Aid for Food and Resources Safer program. So when looking at the data, over 90% of COVID deaths are folks 85 and older, and those are our seniors. And I think a lot of our efforts have been centered around protecting our most vulnerable population. But at the same time, I know the issue of COVID and our response has is very political, but what's not political is how good hygiene makes a difference, social distancing makes a difference. There is no foolproof way right now that we know of to protect people from COVID, but limiting exposure goes a very, very long way. It's limiting their ability to get a transmission of a virus. For our seniors, though, we talk about wanting to ensure if they stay at home, they have the resources they need. And part of that includes balanced meals. So the other aspect of it is also using our COVID dollars to help stimulate the local economy. Number one is providing an important service. Number two is protecting jobs and reducing the fallout that we talked about earlier today. So trying to enter into a public-private partnership with food service companies and a local caterer that has the capacity to do this, we would have weekly in this city, in every council district, we would have 3,500 weekly supplies of groceries from the 5 food groups. There would be protein, there would be dairy, there would be fruits and vegetables and grains. And that's what I'm bringing forward to you. My colleagues and I have met. We've worked with the company to bring down the costs. And by volume, if the volume goes up, the costs go down. And the way this will work is very similar to mobile testing. If you are, when you drive up to United Health Centers in District 2 and you want to get a test, you just drive up, you have an appointment, and you get your test and you go. That would be an option for seniors. But we are also working on another option and partnering with some of our local nonprofits, and Pardini's is available to do this as well, to actually staff these sites and then deliver the foods to some of the seniors that, don't feel comfortable using a bus because of COVID or don't have access to transportation. But the bulk of the program is the logistics and securing the food and the meals and having them ready to go. We'll also have a refrigerated vehicle so that we can transport the food and it won't spoil to every site that we use. And the council members will have discretion on what sites they want to use in their districts. If the council members want to combine sites, do it together, make it easier, that's an option too, but it's really at their discretion. So that's the elevator pitch, I suppose. And if my colleagues would like to chime in, Council Vice President and Councilmember Chavez, please do. I'm sure.
Yeah, Councilmember Carbasi, just to add to what you were describing, yesterday we had a meeting for the Fresno Madera Agency on Aging organization that I sit on, and I asked for some numbers. And so here are some numbers for our senior citizens in the city of Fresno. They're serving approximately 1,500 folks through the Senior Hot Meals programs. Obviously, we know that those have been discontinued and are on, a pause right now, so to speak. But what the numbers that were pretty staggering were folks that actually opted to have meals delivered are not nearly as much as folks that were going to the sites. And I think it's because a lot of those seniors are scared to go out. They're vulnerable. A lot of them have pre-existing conditions. And I think, the best way to think about this is this will be a week-long supply of groceries for senior citizens in our city of Fresno. It'll keep them from actually going out and, going to supermarkets and high traffic points of contact out there. So definitely supportive of this. I know that you've had conversations with some nonprofits, and there were some churches too that were willing to help and deliver some of the meals to senior citizens. So what I felt would be, great to do right now is do a pilot program for a month. Let's see how it goes, see how many seniors we can actually serve, and then leverage that opportunity with those nonprofits and those churches too, because I think a lot of them will step up and help support this effort.
Council Vice President, any comments from your end?
I think he's muted.
Well, if we don't have any other comments from the council, I like the idea. Clearly, you guys have identified the need. Go ahead.
Are you there? Can you hear me now?
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember.
Oh, there he goes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, proceed.
Yes.
A different perspective is Operation Gobble. We've been doing that for 6 years in my district, where we serve on Thanksgiving, just before Thanksgiving, about 2,400 people. We've done that each year for 5 years. So with that in mind, that experience has led us to believe that we need to do healthy, balanced meals, which is delivered for Thanksgiving. And that's what this package includes. And that's through Pardini, which is a well-established food source in the city of Fresno by way of restaurants and banquets, etc. The other thing I wanted to point out is my mom is 93 years old. She'll be 94 on November 13th. This sort of thing is directly applicable. She's vulnerable. She needs to stay home. She needs to stay safe. And delivery service like this would be perfect for her and anyone else in her category, if you will. So for those reasons, the committee has got together and we've exchanged all the ideas you've heard. And I urge you all to support this motion, this resolution. Thank you.
Mr. President, I forgot to add something. In talking with the vendors, so it's estimated this is going to reemploy and reduce underemployment for 50 to 75 individuals, but indirectly through the local food distributors, it'll support about 900 jobs.
Good, thank you. Well, from my perspective, Councilmember, I do appreciate your willingness to put in the work and spend time developing a proposal with the vendors after you've identified a clear need in the community in this pandemic. So from my perspective, you have my support, and I'm looking forward to seeing this at the next agenda, in the form of a contract and a budget, as we have done for all these other proposals. It requires time and work, to actually get all these great ideas into an actual form of a contract and a budget and put it through the process. So I appreciate that effort from your end. And unless we have other comments from the council, I think we'll bring this item back on August 27th if it's ready by then.
Yeah, I just have one comment. I think the focus on the seniors is good. I think it can complement what Neighborhood Industries is going to do. We voted on Neighborhood Industries earlier this week. They're going to be working with, nonprofits as well as others to try to also similarly make sure that we are feeding as many people as possible in our community.
Great, thank you. Just as a reminder, the council's COVID expenditure plan set aside $5 million for food relief efforts. So far, we spent about $4.5 million, so there's still some work to do there. And I'm hoping that this proposal will get us to that final stage. But more importantly, I appreciate the fact that our city is spending time providing direct relief to residents as we're asking them to stay home, not open their businesses, and try and help us reduce this community spread. So thank you for that. And if there's no other comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right, seeing none. Next item is council reports and comments. I'll start with District 1, Councilwoman Soria.
I just have a couple comments. One, folks in District 1, businesses, nonprofits, we're still giving face masks out. So if folks in the community need these face masks, we have them in our office. Please call us at 621-7817, or you can email us at district1@fresno.gov. We have also embarked on an effort to create a design for a new Fresno park on Milburn and Dakota. It was a park that was promised like over a decade ago. So we're trying to get a design so that we can be prepared if there are future grants from the state or federal level. So we want folks' input. There is going to be a virtual community meeting that will be coming up soon. So please follow us on social media. We'll be sending out these notices so that folks can participate and help us create the vision for that Milburn and Dakota west of the 99. And then just lastly, I want to, thank all the families, teachers, students that have embarked this week and last week. I started at Fresno City College teaching again this semester. I know that this journey over the next few months is not going to be easy, but we are in this together and we will get through it. I know that we are all going to do our part to help our kids learn, our young people learn. And so I just want to, remind folks that, students are beginning to go back to school, and it's important that we're adaptable to the current circumstances and that we support everyone in these efforts.
Thank you. Councilmember Carbasi.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to just say, first off, to a lot of our city employees, we're pretty much in COVID mode and doing everything that can be done to help mitigate the effects of COVID. But we're still a functioning city and we still have regular business to perform. And I just appreciate all our departments, all the city workers out there that are continuing these services to the residents. It's not easy. And I can tell you, I really appreciate what you're doing. For the residents out there, especially residents in District 2, it's a tough time. I remember when rolling blackouts happened the first time. We have a pandemic. We have the economic fallout of that. We have the plague now in California. I mean, there's just one thing after another with 2020. And I know it's very difficult, but the council, I think today is making it really clear that we're trying to identify as many segments of our population in the business community to the farm worker to know that we feel people's pain and we want to address it as much as we can. And we're doing everything that can be done. Thank you for being patient with us and thank you for keeping faith. This is a great country. I know we're having a hard time, but we are a great nation and we're going to get through this together. So thanks to the people of this community for giving us the ability to serve you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Vice President Caprillo.
Oh, Mr. President, I forgot to add, this is
I'm
almost
ready to
1
go.
year. Oh, Mr. Vice President, is it okay if I say something?
Oh, absolutely. I just unmuted
Thank you.
myself. Thank you. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to compliment
Thank
you, so it's good. This
Oh.
is on Saturday. It'll be 1 year since I was sworn in as a council member, and I just want to thank my colleagues for your support over this last year. Thanks to Council Vice President Capriolio for all your help as well. And it's been a real pleasure working with you, and I look forward to the next 4 years. Thank you.
Welcome to Thunderdome.
And let the record show that we didn't haze you for the first year, so.
I don't know about that.
Council Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you. Member Carbasi's been an excellent student, by the way. From a senior to a freshman. What I wanted to do is take a moment and thank a few people that have been very instrumental in District 4. Recently, as all of you have had the same experience, I'm sure, my office has had a high volume of calls from residents and businesses on the homeless and illegal activity that's going on. Businesses are suffering with the COVID situation. On top of that, they're having to deal with transients stealing wire, breaking into businesses, sleeping on the front door, and all. It's pretty awful. And so, with that in mind, I wanted to thank the Fresno Police Department and our Code Department for their quick, thorough response to mitigate the damage to the residents and businesses of District 4. I'm sure you all would join me in that appreciation and thank you. Specifically, a huge thank you to Captain Salazar, Sergeant Atkinson, Detective Kim, and especially the bike unit, Dustin, Zach, Brian, and Leon. We get on those bikes, and it's amazing the effectiveness they have. So they're out there meeting the businesses and residents and taking care of business as well. So I also want to thank our Code Department, to the city attorney for their work, especially Rodney and Pam. Just this last week, we had a major issue at University Motel. They were on it, and they're taking care of it, and it's fantastic. So, but the entire department, but especially Rodney and Pam. And also I want to thank, on a different note, for a project we're almost done with in District 4. We'll be voting on it next week. Give you a little tease. So, thank you, Kim Orman, Scott Mosier, Jim, Aldi, you're doing a great job. TJ, Christina, Sarah Hamilton, Bill Herr, Christy Costa, and Mike Payne for all their hard work on the D4 projects. There's many of them in the pipe, but just recently, it's great. This is an exciting time for District 4, and I'm proud to have this team behind me. And finally, I want to thank Scott, Brian, and our street crews. These guys are amazing. Our street crews for their hard work and their paving project in District 4. We've got one that's almost done. We've got 2 more on the books. So District 4, you're shining. Thanks to all these people. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez.
Yeah, I just want to thank the CBOs and a lot of the churches that have been working in Southeast District 5 this past couple of weeks have been a little tough especially for our seniors. As we've seen cases spike, there's definitely a lot of fear in the community. And you've seen a lot of the faith-based organizations and churches and synagogues really step up and help our folks. And that's been really encouraging to see that when they're supporting our small businesses and making sure that they can keep their doors open by, patronizing the locations. That's actually really great to see in our community. And I know that, for the public, at times it might seem like we're arguing with each other, but at the end of the day, I think today's a perfect example of how we can, debate, argue, go back and forth, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to help people. And today, we just did a slew of programs for food distributions, for contact tracing, for health services. And I like to keep that momentum going because this virus has been very challenging for our community, for our city. But I know that working through it together, we're going to get through this. And that's really the message that I wanted to send to a lot of the nonprofits that have been contacting me recently. And I hope to continue that work here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, as Councilmember Bredefeld said earlier, that we don't have to deal with this for a long, long time. But the time that we do, I think it's really shown just the great human spirit that our community has, particularly in Southeast, where I've seen that really come to light this last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bredefeld. All right, Councilmember Esparza.
Yes, tough to capture everything that's been going on in District 7 over the past several weeks, but just a couple examples. Since our last meeting, we've tested over 750 people for COVID-19 in District 7. Thanks to our partner, United Health Centers, as have my colleagues have been doing their testing clinics as well. Also want to thank Dr. John Mua for taking time to do a webinar with myself and District 7 residents and having an open conversation about just how to stay safe within this pandemic that we are currently experiencing. Want to thank both Captain Mindy Casto and Detective Curtis Bunch out of the Central Policing District at Manchester for taking the time to meet with concerned residents in District 7, some of the existing neighborhood watch programs, and also assisting new interested residents in developing their own program as well. And as long as I'm on the topic of public safety, definitely want to recognize our Fresno Fire Department for the remarkable job they've been doing over the past several months and these record number of fires, particularly in my district, and for saving the day when so many structures stand to burn. Additionally, had another hearing on the Fresno Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. We're nearing completion, formation of that district. And that process will continue to happen, and property owners within those boundaries, primarily on the Blockstone corridor and within downtown, will continue to receive those notices and be provided opportunity for input as that process goes forward. And lastly, speaking of development on Blackstone, have been going, want District 7 residents to know that I have been going back and forth with the County of Fresno. Went down to their meeting, the Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, and spoke in favor of resident input on a project that they are proposing unilaterally within city limits on Blackstone. So what I'll probably do there is put together a community forum here within the next week or two for residents within that surrounding site area, because community input is obviously very important on any project. Here in the city of Fresno, we go through a very rigorous process on public noticing and such that I'm not seeing right now from the county. So I'm going to be taking that initiative and make sure District 7 residents have input as the county moves forward on their project unilaterally. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Councilmember Esparza. Just from my perspective, I want to say thank you to the fire department for putting out numerous fires in my district over the last couple of weeks, including one this weekend and one more homeless encampment, a lot of which we've had. So I appreciate their efforts. I also want to say thank you to the farm workers that, as you see, are pictured behind me, who are still picking our crops, even though there's a inferno taking place in our valley floor. Just a recognition that firefighters, farm workers are out there working their butts off, even though there's worsening conditions, and some of us have the luxury of being able to stay indoors with filtered air. So thank you to all those essential workers, firefighters and farm workers who are doing their part to keep us safe and fed. And a reminder for the community, we are doing our turn now on mobile testing. So the next testing will be at Roding Park this Saturday. After that, we'll be going to JSK Park on Clinton and Brawley. So thank you for all the council members who've been doing mobile testing in their districts. We finally got our turn, so we'll be doing significant amount of mobile testing for COVID-19, and also giving out some food and some free PPE as part of the mobile testing. And then finally, I just want to let Councilmember Butterfield know that although we're running late and it might interrupt our date this evening on Vice President Biden's acceptance speech, I am recording it for you, so we will watch it together when I get back in the office, put in the popcorn to make sure that, we can bring that bipartisanship to the next presidency. So
look forward to it. Thank you, Miguel. Put butter on the popcorn, please.
I will. Thank you, Councilor Butterfield. With that lighter note, let's move on to the consent calendar, Council. This is an opportunity for us to review the consent calendars and to accept any public unscheduled oral communication. I am going to go to that first. So any member of the public wishing to address the council on a consent item or unscheduled oral communication, this is your opportunity to do so. Please identify yourself and we'll give you a minute to address the council. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. council, this is an opportunity to discuss the consent items. We do have several items that are being pulled from consent and one recusal. Let me start off with the recusals. Councilmember Chavez, City Clerk, for the record, is recusing himself from item 1X.
I'll make the motion to approve with that recusal on the record.
All right, thank you.
Second.
And we are pulling the following items for discussion separately. It's item 1K, 1L, and 1U. Those will be pulled from consent for separate discussion. Any other consent items the council wishing to pull? All right, seeing none, Councilmember, would you like to make a motion?
That was a motion to approve with the
Second.
recusal.
All right, motion to approve the consent calendar, second by Member Rossi, with 1K, 1L being pulled for discussion, and the recusal on 1X from Member Chavez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Kabasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Council Vice President Caprilio
Yes.
and President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, council, 1K, 1L, I think this is a police department item, city manager. I just have a simple question for the respective staff, if it's a police chief. or
Yeah, if you
whomever.
could let, Chief is on here. Can you make him a panelist, please?
Let me find him.
Oh, there he is.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
can
I
hear you.
Okay,
Chief,
great.
on item 1K, 1L, my simple question is, can you briefly describe to us, one, what the money is going to be used for from this grant, to what are you going to actually purchase? I know there's some allowable purchases, but what do you kind of use the money for to actually purchase? And two, if I may too, does this mean that this frees up your general fund cash? Since we're accepting this grant, or do you already have plans for that general fund money that you otherwise would be using to pay for this equipment?
Okay, so let me take 1K, which is the JAG grant. This is a specific grant from the Justice Bureau, and this is used to offset the general fund every year so that we can purchase equipment for specialty units like Skywatch, the SWAT, and the bomb squad, as well as the traffic enforcement unit. So this has been offsetting budget items, general fund items for multiple years. So this is a continuation of that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Council President?
Council President, can I?
Yes, let me get him to answer my second question, and then we'll go to you, Councilwoman.
Well, I want to follow up because I don't feel like it was answered.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, Chief. I know that you mentioned several things, but are those the several things that you guys are covering, or is it this year you guys need more, the monies is going to be used more for Skywatch, more for, I know that you outlined several of the things that these dollars are usually used for, but I'm just wanting to know kind of what are those needs? And then because you did mention that it offsets general fund. So if we wouldn't have gone these dollars, we wouldn't have bought that equipment, whatever equipment you're going to buy.
Well, but let me answer it in reverse. If we hadn't gotten the grant, we would have come to council to purchase this equipment. This would be like for gas mask, ballistic vests, some equipment for the bomb squad, again, bomb suits. It's also for some equipment for the Skywatch program. So these are all necessities. We rely on them. This is pretty much an annual grant that we receive every year. And we use it so that we don't have to come back to the general fund. And it's very specific what we can use it for. We can't use it for weapons or anything like that. We can only use it for things like ammunition, tasers, canine equipment, things like that. So these offset the general fund, but they're limited to what we can spend them on. We just can't spend them on anything.
And Chief, you said bomb squad. So is that what this year's allocation is going to go towards?
No,
I'm
it's
just trying to
divided up.
understand.
I'm sorry, Cal. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. It's split up into different pots of money. So much goes to Skywatch. So what we do is every year we look at their equipment and when it expires. So, for instance, I think the gas masks for SWAT are at the end of their service life. So we'll be replacing those for the SWAT team. EOD, I think, or excuse me, the bomb squad may receive some equipment, some tools or other equipment, but it's budgeted every year for each of these specialty units that we have.
Okay, that's much more clear for me.
And as far as the other 1L, Council President?
Yes.
This was a supplement CARES funding that came to emergency services, fire and police. We were awarded $683,000. This extends beyond the life of the current CARES grant. So it goes beyond December and allows us to buy protective materials, continue to buy the N95 mask, sanitation stuff. We're buying some fogger machines that we can, or missing machines that we can miss the dispatch center, our records bureau, as well as our police vehicles. So this is just ongoing funding for mostly care safety equipment.
All right. So Chief, just to be clear on this one, you're not buying like, weapons. You're not buying like equipment of that nature, right? It's just for the sanitation, for lack of a better description.
It's exactly what it's for, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And just so you know, Chief, the reason I pulled it is I tried to read the summary and I still couldn't understand what we were actually buying with the money. It's very legalistic language, so it's hard to understand what we're actually receiving and what we're using.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I'm not smart enough to write it in a legalistic language, so I'll try to dumb down our professionals.
Yes, let's bring it down
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
I do have a question, Council President.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
That's fine. There's a motion. I'll second it, but I still have a question.
Proceed.
Can I ask?
Proceed.
So Chief, I just wanted to ask, so I know that the department got this dollar specifically to do the following beyond the December. Given the fact that we got $92 million, does it make sense that we first use the 92 and then allocate this as the 92 millions are exhausted so that the 600 and some can last us longer since there's no expiration date? I'm just trying to figure out kind of your guys' logic and how you guys are expending those dollars. I want to be able to maximize. I want to be able to maximize every single penny that we have, and that we don't return the $92 million because we are on a deadline. I want to make sure that we use those and then expend these at a later time if we have the ability to expend them later.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. It doesn't go much beyond December. It goes into January or early February. We have to spend it. So we are trying to do is offset, kind of focus on personal protection items, face masks, long-term stuff that we can store, and we're using the city's the big pot for larger items like computers that we can have our detectives work at home and things like that. So we are trying to maximize it, but we're in a crunch as well over here.
Okay. Your comment made it seem like we had a lot more time to expend these dollars. So I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Yeah, I thought we had longer too, but my grant coordinator just walked in and shook me off. So we have this shortly after the first of the year. So we're scrambling to get equipment too, because all departments across the nation are trying to get these face masks. We use about 1,000 of the N95 a month now to transport prisoners because it's safer to use the higher quality mask. And we're going to have to buy a pretty large supply of the N95 mask, and we're having trouble locating them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that clarification.
Hey,
Thank you.
Before you leave us, can you just confirm that we're having our officers wear face masks as they're out there exposed to people?
Yes, sir. We have them as much as they can, keeping in mind that certain situation dictates they do take them off. But we're really pushing them to wear them. We've got the plexiglass around most of our decks, especially in dispatch and in the records. We're testing out a misting machine that we can mist our dispatch center without damaging our electrical equipment, and our officers are encouraged to. We're trying to separate them as much as we can And then anytime they come into contact with a prisoner now, we have them upgrade from the cloth mask to the N95. So if the prisoner does come down with an exposure, we don't expose our entire shift.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Chief. And with that, we appreciate your feedback and your answers. There's a motion. There's a second. Roll call, please.
Are we taking K and L together?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes. Thank you. The next item is 1U that I pulled. City manager, if the Parks Director is available. My only question on this one is, I saw the parks that we're improving in the attached report from staff, and I can't seem to identify the park in my district that's listed on this list of sites that will be improved. Could you provide us clarification on where the Cal/Tubman Park is?
Yeah, I have Christina Chamberlain standing by if someone could let her in to the panel.
Perfect.
Christina, do you mind raising your hand so we can find you easily?
I found her.
There she is. Christina, can you answer Council President's question, please?
She's on mute.
Okay.
Hi, Christina. If you could just help me, where's
Yeah.
that park located at?
It is on the cross street of California and Tubman, which is just south of Frank H. Ball Park. It's a small corner pocket park known in the King neighborhood. And we've been working with Alice Green through last couple of years with some improvements that are happening out there in the picnic shelter with picnic tables and barbecues was one of their requests during our community outreach that we've been doing out there.
And just to clarify, this is for awnings, right? Or shade structures?
These, and I'm sorry that we didn't include a general description. Our intent is to do roughly a 20 by 20 footprint, which are going to be the cloth sail covers with 2 picnic tables and 2 barbecues to add for just general public use. One of the strategies in our park master plan was with our life cycle replacement, and we looked through the majority of the park assessments, picnic tables, and adding shade were 2 of the high priorities. So
Perfect.
Select-
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. With that, we have a question from Councilman Soria.
Yeah, Christina, thank you for sharing that information because I know the staff report didn't show that. Just a comment. So if we go back to the Parks Master Plan, it noted that Quigley was the highest ranked park in terms of needs, and I don't see it here. And so I'm a little disappointed because I'm trying to figure out what is the rhyme or reason that you guys selected these parks when we have a Parks Master Plan that has told us kind of how to go about in addressing the needs in a much more equitable way. So I'm just trying to figure out how are we using that as a tool since we spent thousands of dollars in that plan and there was a lot of community input and it doesn't seem to be used as a tool when we're trying to figure out what parks to prioritize and how to get that deferred maintenance number actually down in a very methodical and thoughtful way using that tool that we spent a lot of money on.
So I will address that with respect to Quigley. We did engage, as you know, with your leadership with providing a master plan to redo that entire park. And it was a recommendation that will be coming back to council for affirming that those projects that were submitted for Prop 60, that particular park was for $8.5 million of renovation, is most likely going to be one recommended for resubmittal. And so with that, we would not entertain doing any kind of piecemeal improvement right now. This is roughly $30,000 improvement to the parks by adding the shade. However, having said that, if we are not funded, we are hopeful that we are planning to do some self-performance on these installations to maximize the dollars that are available. This is a separate funding source from the Prop 68 general park improvement. This is specific per capita money, and as a whole, we have roughly $177,000. And so we were trying to be creative in coming up with something that was called out in the park master plan. We were able to try to touch each of the districts, and similar to the Quigley idea, similar with Radio Park would be if there were funds available after we did the installs that would allow for additional areas, that we would entertain that also as the next priority. And then lastly, our thought for District 1 with regard to picnic tables and picnic shelters was hopeful with the design of what I'm calling the Van Ness Triangle, which is going to be a very passive, that we would add some picnic tables, and those could probably be immediately. But again, until we get that design, we didn't want to put some permanent thing that we're not sure where it really should go. So up for D1 was more the Van Ness and the Quigley, even for just this one smaller project.
Perfect. Thank you, Christina, for addressing that. And yes, and I appreciate the work that you guys have been doing on trying to get Prop 68 dollars. The only thing I'm concerned that there are so many parks that folks want to submit an application for. I know the Broadway area, South Tower, they're looking at potentially doing another application. So, you know, last time we weren't successful on any of the applications that were submitted. And so that's why I'm concerned that I'm hopeful that this next round we've learned from, you know, kind of the feedback that we got last time. But, you know, I just want to make sure that I bring it up, because if we don't get the award this next round, we're going to have to start figuring out how we begin to kind of piecemealing it to try to bring it up to where it needs to be, given that it's called out as the #1 park priority. But thank you, Christina. Appreciate that.
Council President.
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you. Christina, rather than questioning what you're doing, I have an opposite view of this, which is appreciation and thanks for the improvements you're about to make in Robinson Park in District 4. We discussed these things and you came through as usual. So I want to thank you and thank TJ, your entire team. You did it again. So thank you for helping District 4. Thank you, Council.
Just one quick comment. I agree with Councilmember Soria's response or concern about the large park. You know, I think the issue is we're having to do a major amount of work there, and we haven't identified the funding, and this per capita dollars just pales in comparison. So, you know, we're going to put our best effort forward to resubmit, but I believe the feedback we got was, though we have great needs, others have greater needs. And so we are going to have to look for a different source, which will be very difficult if we don't get Prop 68 money. And we may have to start thinking of phasing it.
Point of clarification, Assistant City Manager mentioned Large Park. That's in my district. We're in a total different game plan there. So I think you were referencing Quigley.
Yes, I was.
Okay, you mentioned Large, so my heart jumped for a second. So just for the record to clear that up. So Large Park is on track. So thank you.
All right. Just my last comment since I pulled this item, Christina and Jim, I'm a little hesitant to just note for us to move forward with adding the canopy and benches to a pocket park, which is basically a small piece of grass in the neighborhood, because all my existing parks are completely deteriorating. And I've been trying to figure out how we improve the existing parks that actually have playgrounds, have sufficient green space, before we start adding more to the inventory that 5 years from now we're going to have to replace and we're not going to have money for. So know that I'm hesitant to add more amenities to small spaces when the big amenities in the bigger parks are deteriorating at a pretty fast rate. So
And I don't want to speak, I don't want to speak for Christina too much here, but I think we were just looking at, I get the best approach with the limited amount of money. There's probably other opportunities to do small improvements in those larger parks if that's a preference. Is that correct, Christina?
Yes, and I am gonna, if I may, take the opportunity to speak to California Tupman. So this, while it is a smaller park, there has been a lot of effort through the community revitalization program and with the outreach in the community. They actually received funding for a playground structure, which will be installed at that same location through CDBG. The public needs hearing called that out. And it was during those public engagement meetings that they also requested multi-phase to include additional lighting, some.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we're just kind of piecemealing on, unfortunately, that side as well. And that was part of our rationale, is that there would be a playground going in there as well.
Thank you for that, because I just want to make sure we're not just, adding the shade structure and the tree and calling it a park.
Right.
You gotta deal
Yes.
with complaints about people hanging out and kids can't.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. With that,
Okay.
we have a motion, a second. Roll call, please. Thank you, Christina.
I'll show a motion in a second.
You. Yes, motion by Capriolio, second by Soria.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Yes.
and
Thank you,
President
Christina.
Arias.
Yes.
Okay, 7-0.
Council, now this brings us at exactly 3:42 to the first 10 o'clock morning hearing. So we're just a little bit late, but
Good
we've had
timing.
a month break, so this is what we get. With that, let's do the 10 o'clock number 1 hearing. Hearing to adopt a resolution and annex territory and levy a tax on track map 6249. I will go to the public. Is there any member of the public wishing to address the council on this public hearing? I see none. We'll bring it back to the council. Do we have a motion?
Councilmember Bredefeld's area.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'd like to make the motion, please.
Second.
All right, motion by Bredefield, second by Chavez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes. We're going to go to the next item, the 10 o'clock number 2 hearing. A resolution and ordinance to adopt a special tax regarding the Community Facilities District number 9, number 45, and the final track map 6290. This is Council District 2. Is there a motion and a second for it?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Member Bossi, second by Member Chavez. We'll go to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to address the council on the 10 o'clock number 2 public hearing? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
The 10 o'clock number 3 item, it has been moved to September 17th. The number 4 10 o'clock item has been moved to September 17th. The 10 o'clock number 5 item has been moved to August 27th. No, actually it was moved to September. My apologies. That leads us to the 10:05 number 1 item, the joint meeting between the Fresno Powers Financing Authority.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm sorry. For the 10 o'clock number 5 item, if that's moved to September, will that not, because of the county MOU expiring, is that going to impact them, the applicant?
Yes.
Yes.
So if it's moved and we don't hear it next week, then they will not be able to actually move forward with the project. Is that correct?
No, they will if, once we negotiate a sharing
But they'll need a
agreement.
side letter.
Right.
You remember how we have to negotiate individual agreements? Yeah.
So
Yeah,
council,
they
but
would
I'm
be able to-
sorry, I just want clarification because I'm sorry, I apologize. We said that for projects that were approved by the council up until this date, like I think there was a
Councilman
project in District
Karbasi,
4.
let me pause you for 1 second.
Yeah.
The item was already moved when we approved the agenda. We can't get into a discussion at this point because it was already moved when the agenda was adopted.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure we don't get a Brown Act violation and Doug doesn't fine us. But we can circle back with you, and Doug, if you can circle back with Member
Hey,
Karbasi.
Mike, if you have an issue with it, come talk to me. I'll be happy to talk to you. It's in my district. I'm dealing with that issue.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, 10:05, number 1, the joint meeting. It's adoption of a resolution authorizing the release of facilities, including the parking lot, from the facilities that are used for bonding leverage. Staff, do you have a presentation, and would you simply like a motion to approve?
Motion to approve would be nice. Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Chavez. Let me go to the public. Is there anybody in the public wishing to address the council on the joint powers financing?
I have a question.
Give me a second. Let me go to the public, Councilwoman. All right. Anybody in the public wishing to address the financing item? I see. So give me a second, really quick. Bonique, you've been unmuted. Would you like to address the 10:05 number 1 joint meeting, joint powers financing authority item?
No, we wanted to address the 10:05
Okay.
item, or 10 o'clock item number 5 item.
We'll get back to you. Thank you. All right, seeing no public comment on the financing item, we'll bring it back to the council for questions. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
This one is the 10:05 number 1. I'm sorry, there's so many.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's a joint powers financing item. It's simply removing one of our capital assets from the, what's the description that I should use that's correct?
From the list of collateralized assets.
Right.
So I have a question because isn't there a committee for the Joint Powers Financing Authority?
Yes, this is a joint meeting between the committee and the council.
Okay, so the committee doesn't meet ahead of time? I wasn't sure that this was coming up, and so I'm not prepared to support it. Is it time sensitive?
No, it's not time sensitive.
Just because I'm part of the committee, and when I saw it on the agenda, it was the first time, so I haven't had much time.
Would you like us to table it to the next week?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Since it's not time sensitive, I will withdraw my motion and make a motion to table the item and bring it back on August 27th.
And Mike, if we can meet, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Member Chavez, are you okay with my modified motion?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi?
Aye.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes. The next item is a 1010 item. It's a TERFA hearing to consider concerning the proposal to assurance of multifamily revenue bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority for the purpose of financing and refinancing the acquisition and rehabilitation, improvement in equipping the Pleasant Village apartments. Staff, do you have a presentation on this item?
Sure. Good afternoon, council members. Mike Lima, City Finance Director Controller. Before you today is a resolution approving the issuance of no more than $15 million in tax-exempt bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority on behalf of Pleasant Village Preservation LP and 21 Alpha Group LLC. The bond proceeds will be used for the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of the Pleasant Village apartments located at 3669 North Pleasant Avenue. Under the Tax Equity and Financial Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, the governing body of the entity where the facilities gain benefit from the bond issue are located must hold a hearing to receive public testimony and approve the issuance of the refunding bonds. This hearing was noticed on the city's website on August 13, 2020. And as of today, we've received no testimony either for or against the proposed action. Payment of these bonds would be the sole responsibility of the California Statewide Communities Development Authority from their revenue streams. The city will have no obligation or liability associated with this facility or these bonds. Staff recommends the council conduct the required TEFRA hearing and at its conclusion adopts the resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority. Thank you. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, City Controller. With that, I will officially open up the hearing. Anybody in the public wishing to address the council on this 10:10 a.m. hearing?
Motion to approve.
I will close the hearing and consider a motion to approve the resolution by Member Soria.
Second.
Is there second by Member Carbasi?
Just a quick question. Mike, do we know the timeline of the rehab? These are in my district. So
No, I don't know, but I do believe there's a representative from the agency that's bonding. I believe they're in the Zoom audience somewhere, and they might be able to answer that question.
could they speak up? If you could raise your hand, whoever that person may be.
Do we have a representative from the Dakota Marks Pleasant?
Franklin Hess.
All right, Franklin, you are unmuted. Can you provide us a summary of the schedule for the renovation?
Sure. We're planning to close in early October, probably first week of October, and it's about a 12-month rehab, so we should be complete near the fourth quarter of 2021.
Are you guys doing 100% of the units?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
They're in desperate need of rehabbing, so I just drove by them the other day. It looks like they're falling apart.
We're going to do a $5 million rehab, so we're going to take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Member Soria, second by Member Carbasi. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, the next item is our 1020 item.
Thank you.
Actions pertaining to the permanent housing local allocation, the 5-year plan. I believe this is our Director, Jennifer Clark.
Yeah, I have the planning department right there. Can someone let the planning department in? There we go.
All right.
Believe.
What item is this, Council President?
It's the 1010 item. It's the presentation on the permanent local housing allocation 5-year plan. It's a hearing and a resolution adopting and authorizing the submission of the 5-year plan.
1020, right?
1020.
When you call the 1035 item, I have a motion to set that over, but just to give you a heads up so we can forego a lot of dialogue on it. You're welcome.
Finance staff, you have the floor.
Who has the floor?
The planning staff does.
Karen and Tom, are either of you there? Just give us 1 second. I apologize.
Not a problem.
Council President, you want to go to the 1035 item? I just want to make a motion to set that over to another date since we got the documentation last night.
Would you like to set it for August 27th next week?
That'd be, I think that would be most helpful, yes.
Is this, the last night information was the amendment that we were gonna make?
Yes.
And
All right,
So-
let me pause. Our planning staff is ready, so let's get to this item first.
Okay.
All right, planning staff, we see you, but we can't hear you.
Karen, can you hear us? But she can't, we can't hear her. Can we move on to another item while we try to get her audio fixed?
Okay, let's go to the next item, the 1035 item. This is the actions related to the conversions of motels and permanent residents. Council Vice President Capello.
Thank you, sir. I just received the documentation, supplemental documentation, et cetera, on this just 24 hours. So I would urge us to have take the time to thoroughly review this and set it over to the 27th or the meeting after that, whichever suits the president's choice.
Councilman Soria, you have the floor, and then Councilmember Esparza.
So I understand the concerns about, some of the amendments that are being offered, given last minute. I think we were going to offer them in the actual council meeting, but we sent them out early, or at least we talked to staff. I'd like to at least be able to hear this. I think that this is a very important decision that needs to be made sooner than later. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're trying to get more people housed. We need to move forward with this text amendment to allow the conversion of motels and these types of units. And I think that for the most part, the text amendment is what it is, but we do have some modifications to be flexible with essentially the square footage. So I'm happy to be able to, if there are specific concerns, and we can give you a summary of what the minor changes, or not major changes that we made, that were going to be proposed as amendments to the item. But we need to move forward with this because it is going to take, what's the time frame of adoption? Because even after we adopt, it takes a certain amount of time because it is a text amendment.
Councilwoman Soria, let me just remind the public and the council that this item is here for introduction. So it has to come back for a second time anyway. So is there, Doug,
I'll
can you?
motion to approve.
Well, excuse me, but I have the floor.
Proceed.
So my comments were that this came at a very late date. I haven't had a chance to review it, analyze it, and ask questions of the staff. So I'm not prepared to vote on an item that I'm not fully prepared to vote. Therefore, I will not support it until such time as I have the opportunity to read, review, analyze, discuss with the sponsors, that is the department, and then have a sound foundation for a very important vote. So I make a motion to continue it. If not, then I'm a no vote. So
Point of
choose your
order,
pleasure.
Mr. President, wasn't there already a motion?
Yeah, let me go to the legal counsel. Counsel, can you remind us really quick, is there a vote on these items when they're introduced?
Yeah, this is an ordinance that requires introduction and adoption. And you can, but are not required to vote at introduction. So you can technically just hear it and do nothing today and then come back and vote next week.
Okay, that's fine.
That's my suggestion.
All right, perfect. Let's go with that, Council Member, Vice President. Let's proceed with this item as an introduction. We'll hear the item and we'll withhold voting until it comes back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Vice President. With that, staff, who's presenting this item, the 1035?
George.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Kelsey George from Planning and Development is presenting this item.
Kelsey, you have the floor.
Are we back to the 1020?
I don't see planning and development, nor do I see Kelsey Aldi on, unless she's a number that I can't recognize.
And development is there.
Okay, I'm understanding right now that there is a problem in the room that Kelsey's in. So I have Karen and Tom with me for the item that we skipped earlier.
Which one is that?
1020?
The 1020.
Oh, I skipped one?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. All right. We'll go.
Thank you for bearing with us today.
It's all right.
All right, Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. You have the floor. Proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I'm Karen Jenks, the Administrative Manager for the Housing and Community Development Division. The Permanent Local Housing Allocation, or PLHA, is a new source of annual funding from the state of California. It's for housing activities that address the needs identified in the city's housing element to primarily benefit low and moderate income persons. In order for the city to receive its first year allocation of $3.4 million, California HCD required the city to submit a 5-year plan outlining how funding will be allocated to eligible activities. Additionally, the state requires there to be evidence of public opportunity to comment on the plan, and California HCD extended that deadline to submit evidence of that opportunity to August 26, 2020. So at this time, staff asks that the council obtain views and comments through the scheduled public hearing. Thank you.
Council, we will open up the public hearing before we bring it back to the council. This is a public hearing on this proposed 5-year plan. I will now go to the public. Brandy, you have the floor for a minute to address the council.
I had to stop and think for a moment which one we're on. But this one is just a simple support and gratitude for the work for this. We know that prevention of homelessness and affordable housing for our community members is extremely important, as well as this makes it more accessible for those who are currently homeless to be able to access affordable housing. So I just wanted to thank and lend my support for this hearing. For this item.
Thank you. The next person is Sheng Zhang. You are unmuted and you can address the council on this item.
Hi, all. My name is Sheng Zhang with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. We appreciate staff's time and effort in developing a plan for the permanent local housing allocation funds the city is set to receive continuously that responds to the priorities we have consistently heard from residents we work with. So this includes support to become a first-time home buyer, rehabilitate people's homes that are rented or owned, including mobile homes, develop affordable housing, and support the city's ability to improve the quality of and increase its affordable housing stock. As the city hires a consultant to implement these programs, they must ensure that the scope of work includes a responsive public process where people have a say in the development of these programs, and also a strong media and partnership strategy so that those with the greatest need are made aware of these programs' funding availability. All of these programs should work collaboratively and leverage additional existing funds to support weatherization and energy efficiency efforts for these homes. For instance, there is funding to place solar panels free of charge on people's homes they own. However, a barrier to qualifying is the fact that these homes' roofs are too old and the homeowners are unable to pay for the amount of money it would need to update it. Additionally, the city needs to look strategically and long-term as to how we can build on these millions of dollars and leverage local sustainable dollars to fund an affordable housing trust fund to support these programs and expand them. This means identifying a source, developing a structure and programs, and rolling them out. We cannot continue to rely on the state's leadership to solve Fresno's housing crisis when it comes to supplying quality, affordable housing across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, I'll bring it back to the council. Member Esparza, I see your hand up.
Yes. So taking a look at the proposed allocation, there is one small portion. I categorically support this, but there's one small portion I think there's room for improvement. That is taking a look at the portion that is going to be used on new construction, a single family. I'd rather see that allocation gone into. My number one preference would see it go into multifamily. My number two preference would be to see it split between the other categories, including multifamily. I think for the amount that's being given, I'm not sure how many homes you could really possibly build with that amount of money. And say you were to allocate it to multifamily, that might result in more units, or allocate it to helping first-time home buyers with the down payment. I think that would ultimately help more families, put them in striking distance of home ownership by helping more families with down payments. And then even the home rehabilitation. I mean, in a district like mine, all the dilapidated infrastructure and housing in my district would benefit greatly. So I would propose reallocating the new single family construction to a different category. Anyway, my number one preference would be to go into multifamily.
Okay. Council member, would you like to do that in the form of a motion, or do we need one, legal counsel?
I mean, I think we need a motion, but I do want to hear from my colleagues just to see what their preference is on the allocation. If we're going to distribute that 28.5%, which direction it's going to go.
Councilor Carbasi, you have the floor.
So I think that we need to have a balance, and I appreciate, we're in a housing crisis. We want more units, and I understand the need for multifamily housing. But if it's multifamily housing where the person gets to have ownership and we can help them have ownership for a starter home or a starter property, they can build equity. When we talked a lot about our Black community and how the fact they have the home ownership is among the lowest in our community, but that goes across the board. There's a lot of freedom, especially now that we have these great interest rates. This is a great time for people, and I know it's difficult, to build equity. But if you don't have ownership, you don't have that option. So when we take away all the money from single family, we're taking away that option effectively. So I don't want to put all eggs just in one basket. If we can have a more balanced approach, I think that would be better overall for the city.
Well, this is such a small amount of money in the grand scheme of building single family. I just think you get a lot more bang for buck in the other categories. And I'm open to splitting it amongst the other three, but I just, with this amount of money, I just don't know how far you're really taking it for anybody. I think, what you would do to help one family in the single family arena would help multiple families placed into the other categories.
That's why I say if we could find a good formula, because we want to help as many people as possible, but there's different types of needs people have. Let's say, we have two parents, they're working two jobs and they don't have a college degree, which is fine. They've got two jobs and they're building that equity. They want to buy their first home. If we can help with that process, that's important too. Every segment deserves to have help.
City staff, can you just help us and walk us through a summary of where you're recommending these dollars be put so we have the full picture?
Absolutely. And I do want to point out two important things. That part of the requirement is that we have 20% of the plan has to go towards AOWH, and that's home ownership. So that's why we put some towards the single family home ownership, as well as it also addresses a lot of the issues that we found in our housing element, and that this Fresno stock for affordable housing for single family ownership is really, really low. And so while it might not obviously solve the whole problem, it certainly helps. And so that's why we had it split that way.
So would that 20% be met by the amount where, so say we put nothing in the new construction, but we put it all into helping with down payments, would that qualify? Would that count?
I believe that would only get us down, it would get us to 10%. So it would be important to have it for the single family category.
Which, Councilmember Esparza, can you clarify which bucket do you want to reduce?
The bucket that is proposing new single-family construction for single-family homes, proposing putting it into the other buckets, whether it's multifamily or helping more families with the down payment or home rehabilitation. So I'm proposing it goes to those other three categories, but it looks like we have, so now staff, to make it clear, what is the minimum amount we have to put into this category, this bucket of single-family home construction?
20%.
But I mean, a total. So right now I think it's at 28.
What if, Councilmember Esparza, what if that 28 for the new construction also includes if you buy your home and it needs rehab, right? So that people can buy homes in your district, but also have the ability to upgrade it so that it's not a bad home, I don't know if it would be eligible for that.
I think it's
203K basically. Is that what you mean? Like when they can get a loan for all the rehab and stuff? That would
Yeah,
help
so
them
you
get it on.
get down payment assistance. You can get down payment assistance, but we know that the down payment assistance is only going to get you to acquire it. But sometimes you want to buy, maybe you can only afford a home, that is on the lower end in District 7, but it needs some rehab. And it, is there an ability to kind of do that jointly so that people are also encouraged to buy homes in the center of the city, but that could be fixed up?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. What I was
that would be kind of the bridge there, because you can allow both new, but you can also allow folks to buy in already an existing neighborhood, but fixing it up as well. Is that eligible? Can we do that?
My understanding is that we would need to have the single family homeowners at 10.5% of the total funds, and the rest could be rehab at 9.5%.
I think but if they're 203K loans where it's a loan for a rehab, would that qualify for this program? Because I know that's not a very conventional kind of loan. I mean, you can do it conventionally, but that helps people get extra money over the value of the home to make those improvements. There are certain rules.
Exactly. I wasn't sure about the wiggle room because the way I was reading it was that we were proposing that 28% explicitly for new construction. That's what I had read initially here. So Was that, yeah, a good question from Councilmember Carbasi.
Yeah, so I'm being told that the 203 loan would be a federal requirement, so this is state, so we would have to look into that.
Council, if I may add, a lot of these, single family, multifamily have popped up in my district over the last 20, 30 years. And on this one, I'm gonna agree with my council colleague Carbasi that, home ownership and the equity that's generated through home ownership is one of the few wealth building mechanisms in our country. And, just keeping people in subsidized public housing doesn't really help them, when it becomes a trap, in my view, when there's no upward mobility. So I like to be able to balance all of those. And I have seen the really good projects, like there's a self-help, homer, single family owner occupied next to a senior citizens rental, property, both funded through CDBG funds. And that's the kind of mixed income and the wealth building I think we need to be able to balance across the city, so we don't just do oversaturate with one of those models.
And I think this council, at least in the previous years, we had been asking for a long time because we had stopped doing the down payment assistant programs for a long time. And so I think that we need to really encourage that. I do agree with, my colleagues, but if there's a way, I think that you can also encourage those. For example, if you're renting a home and you have the ability to maybe buy your home there, but it does need some improvements, how can we encourage that as well so people improve the property? Because I get that he lives in he represents an area where you can't really have much new construction. So how do we mirror those? Can you find us, is that possible?
Let me ask you this.
Attorney or
is it necessary for us to approve this today, or can you go back and get answers for us and we can bring it back next week?
So I would like to clarify one thing, because California HCD allowed us to extend the time to get our public hearing because of COVID and get the resolution, but they did make us submit our plan by the deadline of July 27th. So we asked them how that was supposed to work if we didn't have our resolution yet, and they informed us that we asked that the resolution be passed as is, and then we would be happy to be directed to work with California HCD to do an amendment.
All right, so it looks like we're required to pass it as is and then come back with an amendment.
Yeah, well, I'll make the motion to approve it as is then, if that's.
as is, but you should include that we come back to review it or revise it.
Yeah, with the understanding that we'll come back to review for at least one amendment.
Yeah, second.
All right, there's a motion, there's a second. We already went to public for comment. So roll call, please, to approve as submitted with direction to come back with amendment on the allocation.
Councilmember Bredefield. Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi.
Aye.
Councilmember Soria.
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, council, we're back to the
President Arias?
Yes.
I just have want to clarify something for the record. I know that we already discussed this item, the one that we just allowed the introduction, and we're going to come back and vote on it. I just want to make sure that the record reflects that the introduction does include the attachment that all the council members did receive, so that they'll review it comprehensively. If you guys wanted me to read it for the record, I'll read it for the record.
Yes, please do so the public knows what the amendment is.
So the introduced version will include the following amendment to section F. FD will include clarification headings to show two options regarding efficiency unit kitchens and common use kitchens. Section F, little f, will be added to include a provision on converted efficiency units. That section should read as follows. Units converted to residential efficiency units shall comply with Health and Safety Code section 17958.1 and occupied by no more than 2 persons is permitted when the unit has a minimum floor area of 150 square feet and partial kitchen or bathroom facilities as set forth in the minimum standards above. So that's what will be included in the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And council, just if I can open up this item, this is an item that myself and Councilmember Esparza began to work on a year ago. And the premise of this work was that we're both have districts that have significant amount of motels, and motels that have been deteriorating over decades to poor conditions that violate basic health and safety code conditions. In the rental inspection program that the city adopted a few years ago, they exempted motels from being inspected, and as a result, some of them deteriorated further. We did have a series of meetings with motel owners and stakeholders early on, more than a year ago when we started this process. We provided them the text and the changes that we're proposing to make to essentially allow for the first time motels to be converted from transient, use to permanent affordable housing with requirements that they make building code changes to ensure the safety of those facilities as people live in them for long periods of time. We did make sure that the fire chief got to see the changes and everything from installing firewalls between units, fire suppression systems, things of that nature. And since then, staff has been putting these changes into the process, going through all the committees, all the way into the point where we're at today. My understanding is none of the committees from the districts express opposition to this work. We did get a lot of good feedback from folks, and this is being brought forward as an introduction and will be brought back for action. Additional context, the governor and everybody has now seen that empty motels that once were the thriving backbone for tourism are opportunities for places for people to be housed on a long-term basis. As such, they've made money available to cities to apply for the turnkey program, where municipalities would buy, renovate, and make those facilities available for the homeless and for those who need affordable housing. This would allow us to streamline that process if we were to secure money from the state to acquire these facilities, renovate them, and put them into good use. So with that, I want to thank staff and our legal team and planning. Jennifer and team spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to streamline this process while ensuring the safety of those who would eventually occupy these facilities. It is fair to say that these motels for years have been used as long-term housing. If you go to the motel tour that we did more than a year ago with them, Police Chief Dyer, Councilmember Chavez, Esparza, our city attorney, we ran into residents that have been living in those motel rooms for a decade. It's not what they were designed for in the 40s and 50s when they were built, but unfortunately that's what they've become. So it is our hope that this provides landowners, property owners, municipalities a vehicle for making a reinvestment in those facilities and make them available for affordable housing. With that, I'll turn over to staff. You have the floor, staff.
Is there anything more to add? I think you pretty well made a case for the item.
Thank you, Council Vice President.
Hi, good afternoon, council members, council president, Kelsey George, Planning and Development. I have prepared a brief presentation for you this afternoon. In front of you right now for your consideration is text amendment application P20-00460, which would add section 15-2737.5 to the Fresno Municipal Code relating to lodging to dwelling requirements and amending the applicable use tables and definitions for residential use, as well as the related environmental assessment. The proposed text amendment was initiated by Fresno City Council Resolution number 2019-106, along with the Non-Transient Motel Inspection Program. The Non-Transient Motel Inspection Program identifies blighted and deteriorating non-transient facilities and encourages rehabilitation so the identified facilities meet minimum health and safety standards. The program authorizes inspections of such facilities to determine if they are in compliance with the safety code standards that are set forth in the California Civil Code. The proposed text amendment would provide pre-2020 hotel and motel owners an option to convert to multifamily residential to accommodate the non-transient residents, along with the requirement that these buildings are brought up to the current codes. The text amendment as proposed provides for a conditional use permit application process for owners of hotels and motels that were constructed and operational prior to January 1st of this year to convert their existing lodging use buildings to residential use. Like I said, to accommodate these non-transient residents who are staying there with the requirement that they are bringing these buildings up to code. Approving the text amendment does not approve any project, and each project is still subject to full discretionary review with a conditional use permit. This discretionary review includes the environmental assessment, district committee review, and public notice of intent to take action to be mailed out. The text amendment as proposed also does not commit property owners or hotel motel owners to convert. It just creates the option for them. It streamlines and clarifies the requirements of a conversion, and it makes the use conditionally permitted in districts which previously did not permit residential uses. The text amendment identifies the minimum standards that are necessary for a conversion, and they include fire safety, lavatory requirements, heating and cooling requirements, food storage and preparation facilities, as well as the electrical capacity. In addition, it outlines the maximum density and the legal non-conforming uses that would be permitted. Ultimately, the proposed text amendment addresses Fresno City Council Resolution number 2019-106 and ensures minimum health and safety standards for non-transient residents are being met. The text amendment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15061-B-3 under the common sense exemption. Since this text amendment just establishes the framework for future land use, and each individual project is subject to discretionary review, which includes the environmental assessment at the time of project submittal, it can be seen that the text amendment itself will have no impact on the environment. With that, staff recommends that the council adopt the environmental assessment number P20-00460, which is dated for May 15th, 2020, which finds the text amendment exempt from CEQA, and accept the bill for introduction, which adds section 15-2737.5 to the Fresno Municipal Code relating to lodging to dwelling conversion requirements, amending all of the applicable use tables and modifying zoning and use regulations for lodging to dwelling uses within the city of Fresno. That concludes my presentation, but I am available for questions should you have any.
Thank you, staff. And as a reminder to the public, the council initial approval of this resolution that put us down the path that's taken us almost a year was done on May 16th of 2019. So since then, staff has been working through all the details and going through all the appropriate, hearings and publications. So thank you for more than a year's worth of work. We finally got here, and I'm hopeful we will complete this process before we get our first application to convert a motel in the city of Fresno. With that, I'll take it to the public for any questions from the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to address the council? Brandy, I will unmute you for a minute to address the council.
And now I know which one this one's for. Yeah, I want to voice my support for the housing. I see that this is more for the resolutions that allow for that. As we can see, it's very much needed. People I've talked to that know about some of the projects that are already going on are excited about the chance to have housing, especially that is more inside the city, like on Broadway, and to have that step up in a new life. This week I went out and gave water during the heat, and there's a lot of people who are out there and really want housing. Like a sweet elderly couple that uses whatever money they can get from their Social Security to get a motel and a Motel 6 for a couple of days just so they can shower with their Social Security check. and a gas man and couple that are trying to find places. There's a lot of people where this would be great. I hope that within these zoning things that there is room in all the districts for this, that you guys are that this will include motels at areas that will be close to amenities like social services and grocery stores and other things so they can thrive, and that this would be able to help them to be able to transition. I mean, to be able to be part of a thriving part of the community, as I know that they wish to be and continue to contribute to the community as they have been while they were unhoused. So thank you for those things. And I do ask that in consideration of all these things, that it is made that the locations are maximized for that would be the most beneficial for those who are moving in. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Esparza.
Yes, I wanted to ask Vice President Capriolio if he'd be amenable to a vote. As you know, per the presentation, there is not any kind of imposition, you know, coming from this resolution, this ordinance. Rather, you know, it's an opportunity, it's an option. There's still a conditional use permit that comes with that process that comes with this ordinance. I make a motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve, a second by Member Soria. Any other comments from the council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Aye.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio? Council President Arias?
Yes. Thank you, city staff, and thank you, Director Jennifer Clark, for all the work that you put into this. With that,
Council President, that was a yes vote.
Thank you. It was a unanimous approval. Thank you, council, for that. With that, we'll go to item 3A as an apple, adopting the 8th Amendment to the Annual Appropriations Resolution in the amount of $68 million. Director
Mosier.
Mr. Mosier, you're asking for $68 million. Can you convince us in a clear, concise, and think way that you deserve $68 million?
Good afternoon, Council. These are projects that Council has already approved in some way, either by, for example, Blackstone McKinley grade separation. Council approved a cooperative agreement with the Transportation Authority, Veterans Boulevard, build grants, STIP funds. The reason that we're before you today is really because of the continuing resolution which occurred. What that meant is, even though these were known, there was not the opportunity then to build those into the budget for the year. Of course, these are time-sensitive items. Really, council has approved agreements and such in various ways, authorized grant applications, but just by virtue of the continuing resolution we went through, we do not have appropriations in place for these particular projects at this time. With that, we've assembled, compiled that list, and would recommend council approve those in order that we'd have spending authority to move forward. And staff's available with any questions.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second from Councilmember Butterfield and Esparza. Let me go back to the public. Is there any member of the public wishing to address the council on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for questions. Any questions, council?
Council President?
Yes,
Council President? I just want to, again, thank Scott Mosier and his team for all the good things you're doing. Yeah, not only in District 4, but in the city of Fresno. This is another example of what you have prioritized for us. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Scott, just for the record, are you sneaking in any project that we didn't approve that we're going to be surprised by tomorrow?
Council President, none at all. These are all things you've seen in some way, shape, or form previously. So again, glad to answer questions
Yeah,
on anything
there's
on the
one in my
list.
district, but we're not gonna talk about it today.
I just want to make sure that, Councilor Butterfield didn't get a bridge to Clovis without telling us about it, and then we'll be surprised that it's being built.
Well,
All right.
can I just
Okay.
ask a question? So is all the veterans money in the project list for this year, what is needed to complete it?
Yes,
That's what
I can answer that.
noticed.
I can answer that from the FCCA meeting where it's fully funded. That was a meeting yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you for your update, Paul. Just wondering.
All right. Council, let's go roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
and President Arias.
Yes, without the bridge to Clovis, though. All right, Council. Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you, Scott, for always, earning the trust of the council on all these competing priorities and, ensuring that we're no longer getting in food fights over potholes. Because for the record, I still have more than anybody else, but we'll take that fight later. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, next item is the 3A, the 3B, a presentation and workshop on the conditions of Santa Clara Street. City Manager, I understand HB's has a presentation on the condition of Santa Clara.
Yes, he does. And I want to remind everybody that we're also doing the homeless workshop next week as well. So this is just Santa Clara today. H, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great, beautiful. All right. Good afternoon, City Council members and City Council President. Today we're going to be addressed. This is H. Fees, member of the Mayor Lee Brand's team and office. This presentation is addressing the challenges of Santa Clara Street area. I'd like to thank Council President Arias for requesting this update of the city's plans for a comprehensive response to the unhealthy and dangerous homeless encampment, the largest homeless encampment in the area, bounded by Santa Clara, Ventura, G, and E Streets. This plan represents the humane and right thing to do to protect and care for our most vulnerable residents in our city's largest and most unhealthy encampment. Next slide, please. To give a little background, on March 4th, 2020, Governor Newsom proclaimed the state of emergency as a result of the threat of COVID-19. Due to the transient nature of the homeless population and greater potential to transmit COVID, the CDC issued guidance for encampments to remain in place. Consistent with the CDC's guidance, the city has not conducted daily wake-ups in the area bounded by Santa Clara, E, Ventura, and G Streets for several months. As a result of this suspension, encampments have become larger, more entrenched, very unhealthy, and even dangerous. I was asked to work with our city departments and our local community-based organizations to come up with a comprehensive response to this situation. The summary of that response is 4 steps. 1, next slide please, temporarily reduce vehicular traffic in the area. Number 2, conduct a modified cleanup of the area, ensuring proper spacing of temporary shelters for homeless residents, and resume daily wake-up calls. 3, increase outreach and navigation services leading to housing. Number 4, establish a good neighbor district that reduces encampments in the area bounded by Fresno, Highway 41, G Street, and Highway 99. Let me take each of those steps briefly so that you can know exactly where we stand in this process. Step 1, establish site control. Site control is established by reducing vehicular traffic in the Santa Clara Street area. This involves closing off vehicle access at Ventura and E, Ventura and F, and Ventura and Golden State, and installing a temporary entrance on Santa Clara Street just west of the Renaissance at Santa Clara building. Why a vehicular, reducing vehicular traffic? Because vehicle traffic related to drug trafficking, criminal activity, human trafficking, and illegal dumping is exacerbating the difficulties facing the area. To date, we have conferred with PD, Public Works, Sanitation, our outside legal counsel, Jim Betts, and the Parvarello House. All agree this will help reduce the crime, violence, and disruption in the area. Number two, on July 29th, we met with the city attorney's office to determine that a temporary reduction in traffic is legal and allowable by an emergency order from the city manager. The city manager has approved this, and we will ask it to be implemented as needed and appropriate. Number three, Public Works has concluded that K-rail barriers can be installed within a day or two, and we are negotiating with a local nonprofit to monitor the entrance. Outreach to the 6 residents in the area will take place before establishing site control. Next slide, please. That was step 1. And next slide, please. Step 2. Reinstitute daily cleanups. A 15-day noticing process will take place, which includes daily outreach and engagement, offering resources and services in compliance with Administrative Order 623. A procurement process has been established to employ a vendor to provide sanitation services for a 1-day cleanup. Daily wake-ups and regular garbage removal will take place thereafter. We had begun a process of reinstituting daily wake-ups as of July 1st. However, a sudden spike in COVID cases community-wide, active cases on the street, and agitation among residents led us to stand down and begin to develop this more comprehensive approach. On July 23rd, after 2 weeks notification, we actually did a de-encampment on a portion of this area, which has been very successful. Now, Jim Betts, our outside legal counsel, has approved this plan to move ahead with notification and reinstating daily wake-ups. To overcome the threat of COVID in the initial first day cleanup, we have received approval from the city attorney and risk management of a contract for a private vendor. PD and sanitation are standing ready to follow this 1-day cleanup with reinstituting daily cleanups thereafter. We are in the process of identifying funds for the first day cleanup. Next slide, please. Step 3, increasing outreach, involves providing outreach and navigation services to those who are living on the streets in the Santa Clara area, consistently offering and linking to MapPoint and other services that all lead to housing. We're developing a transportation plan for serving homeless clients from across the city to access and use the services available in the Santa Clara Street area and then return to their residence. We are in the process of negotiating a contract with a local CBO to increase outreach services. We've identified available beds to offer current street residents in the area and are in the process of identifying funding for these beds. Our transportation department is preparing to meet with local CBOs to develop a coordinated transportation plan and to assist in identifying additional resources to implement it. Next slide, please. This slide identifies a good neighbor district that's bounded, as you can see, by Fresno Street on the north, 41 on the south, G Street, and 99. Other cities such as San Diego and Los Angeles have instituted good neighbor districts to mitigate encampments in areas where homeless services are provided. Our city attorney's office has approved the concept and drafted an ordinance that we would like to bring to City Council for approval. We are negotiating with local CBOs on a plan for maintaining the district. In conclusion, what we hope for from your council is approval in concept of this plan, support of Public Works implementing the temporary traffic reduction plan, support of PD and sanitation, sanitation's availability for plan implementation, consideration of future contracts that will be presented to council for outreach, housing, transportation, and the security services needed to implement the plan, and establishing a good neighbor district by ordinance. This is the humane and right thing to do to protect and care for those individuals who are our most vulnerable. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. Let me go to the public first on this workshop. Des Martinez, you are online and you can address the council. Des, are you online?
She's muted.
All right, let's.
Excuse me, hello? I didn't see the mute, or am I still on?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I would like to speak on regards to having everything in one area is not gonna work. Telling the community that you're working on something is not gonna work. I've been asking for 5 months, HPs. You just gave a whole spew on everything that I've been talking about for 5 months. So you're welcome for your little thing, that PowerPoint that you put together, because everything that you said is what I have been saying for 5 months. But to put everybody in one area because resources are there is not going to work. If we need to have resources being brought to the shelters and not have them all in one spot. To be working with sanitation and all that stuff, it's a lie. I'm sorry, but it's a lie to say that you guys have made changes down there in District 3, because I've been fighting for 6 months to get you down there, and all I've heard from you is we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. I'm tired of hearing we're working on it. I want you to really do something about it. It shouldn't take another 2 weeks. It shouldn't take another 2 months. It should have been done already. But because you have neglected District 3 and Santa Clara area, there has been several shootings, I'm sure more than any other district has experienced here in Fresno, California. You guys can go ahead and pull the data on that. There has been numerous ambulance down there all the time due to the stabbings, the beatings, the rapes. These have increased because you have denied sanitation to go down there and clean up. You have denied the services to be down there. You have denied a lot of things since COVID started, and I don't appreciate you sitting on here sounding like you really want to help when you could have been helping this whole time and cleaning up that district in that area. I don't agree on moving everybody into one area because the resources are there. It's already been proven with CAP way out there. Resources can come to other
Council
places.
President, do we have other speakers?
Go ahead. Complete your comments, Des Martinez.
And I really feel by hoarding everybody into District 3 and saying you're going to work on it is not. Me and Sarah have been talking about for months blocking off those streets due to the gang violence, the rapes, the shootings, the murders, anybody that has died down there. We have been begging you. So please don't take any longer. Do not put everybody in District 3 just because some resources are there. We need to have them throughout Fresno. And every single district needs to have a shelter because people prefer to live in their own neighborhood. If they grew up in your district, they should have a right to be there, homeless or not. But resources can be sent out to these shelters or any other housing that's available. Please clean up Santa Clara Street because you have stopped everything, HBs. It is the worst I've ever seen in the whole time, 6 years that I have been dealing with homelessness. And I'm pretty sure it's the worst. And you can ask Sarah and Zach. It is the worst that they have seen since working down there. And this is the fault of you putting it off.
Thank you, Des. Next person, Brandy. You're unmuted. Go ahead and address council.
Okay, I had one little comment and a question. And I know that you don't necessarily can address the questions, but I just wanted a clarification. One, I did want to mention that having been out there when there was cleanups, people out there are willing and anxious to clean up their area. I saw them like out early sweeping when there was going to be a cleanup one time and getting everything, just working really hard, no matter how, difficult it was for them sweeping things, and they're constantly doing that. So having support in that and having people who can help, pick up the, sweep things up is huge because the people that I've seen out there are working hard to do what they can to keep things clean. So I also want to, and I know that there haven't been cleaning out there, but I know our street family members have been trying to do as hard as they can to do what they can with what the resource they have. And I know there wasn't a thorough cleanup at that time, but I saw them with brooms. But my question is, I didn't get an elaboration on what the and I agree with like Des mentioned about the fact that there hasn't been cleanups when I was out there. But what exactly is a good neighbor? The point 4 on with the good neighbor thing, because it was mentioned and I saw the map, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. But again, like I said, I agree with Des as far as what I saw with cleaning, but people have been cleaning themselves, so they do want that.
All right, council, let me bring it back to the council. And if you would bear with me, council, Brianna, could you pop up the presentation I sent you earlier? I want to give you my perspective on what I've been dealing with for 18 months since my arrival on the council. You can start on the first slide. The first meeting I had as a council member was on Santa Clara Street in January of 2019. And each time since then, we've probably met 24 times with staff at least. And each time there's been a promise of they're going to work on it, they're going to fix it. This is months prior to the COVID pandemic. And each time there's been a complete failure of the follow through that was promised to take place. Brianna, if you can just start the slideshow, that'd be fine. That background photo is the conditions today after the city of Fresno sanitation crew cleaned up at our request this week. You can go to the next slide, Brianna. We have been very clear in emails, in phone calls, in meetings, that there are sewer conditions, overflow of garbage. The water basin has become a landfill. There's hundreds of people encamping there. There's been multiple shootings, violent crimes and multiple rapes, drug and human trafficking, stolen cars. There's literally been cars in the middle of the street being cut up and chopped up in live during the daytime. The cameras that were installed there by the police department have been inoperative for years. There's been numerous fires. In the wintertime, we had half a dozen garbage cans in the middle of the street and people having bonfires throughout the whole day, with nobody seeming to care enough to stop the behavior. When COVID began, next slide, Brianna, the city staff made the recommendation that we continue to move people across the city, except on Santa Clara. But they promised that those people would be relocated into the shelters that we're spending millions of dollars in opening and funding. To their credit, we opened those beds and we removed hundreds of people from Santa Clara into the shelter beds, only to see hundreds of more people replace them, only to see the gangs and the drug dealers park, set up shop, and engage in the drug trafficking and sex trafficking. If you go to the next slide, those photos I just showed you is Santa Clara after we asked sanitation to clean it up. As you can see that photo, we've had meetings with every stakeholder in that block, with the police department, the mayor, the legal counsel, and everybody in the sun to come up with a plan. And it's been months since we've had those meetings. Each time, we've been given new excuses for the inaction, new individuals who are becoming the roadblocks of the inaction. Everything from outside counsel being blamed for not allowing us to clean up that place, to the public health office, to the county of Fresno, to our sanitation folks, to the internal COVID team. There's nothing but excuses that have been popped up over months and months for not taking action. Next slide. We have been documenting every single meeting, every email, every phone call. Next slide. And we've gone nothing but the same. Next slide, please. To the point that the homeless committee was advised of this plan and was promised that it would be initiated on August 17th and the cleanup would take place. And just to give you an example of what my frustrations have been, one of the solutions was put a garbage bin in that area so the homeless people can put their garbage in. We asked the homeless people to put the garbage in, and they did. They filled it up. And those bins were never emptied. Then they put in trash cans, and those were filled up, and the trash cans were never emptied. When we asked for the cleanup to occur and finally empty those, all the trash outside of the bins and outside of the garbage cans was left on the ground. I don't know what else to do besides be very clear and transparent on the frustration. I've gotten emails from the providers who are expressing their concern and indicating that they will not expand services in that area because their lives are at risk when they're trying to enter the facility. I walked that facility. I go there twice a week, and twice a week it is the same conditions. For a year, I've been asking for that pit to be cleaned, and people continue to do that. We've made some minor progress. An encampment that had 200 people on the side of the freeway was cleaned up after they set the whole area on fire and almost burned down Poverello House, even though we've been asking for months to clean it up. So what I'm gonna ask my council colleagues today is support the idea that we need staff to actually execute a plan and stop presenting general ideas. Commit to sanitation. In the budget in June, we included $250,000 to deal with sanitation. If our staff cannot do it because they're short staffed with COVID, fine, outsource it. You have the authority to write a contract today. Why go through an RFP process for 6 months while the garbage piles up and the human feces piles up? Get the input of Chinatown, because as we move folks out, they're gonna go next door to Chinatown. Come up with a safety plan. All I've done thus far is whenever we call and I email or text the mayor, sure, there's a response the next day or immediately, but the following day, we're back to square one. There's no city ownership of Santa Clara. There's been a complete abdication of duty, and I appreciate the work that H has done, but this plan that he's outlined has been discussed for a year. And we have an emergency power and authority now to simply execute. And when you have the homeless advocates and the homeless individuals telling you, this area is so bad that we need you to come and clean it up, it seems to me that we've now found ways to simply delay and delay. So what I'm gonna ask my council colleagues is, I think it's time for the whole city to be responsible for what's taking place in Santa Clara and for the city to take ownership. So this proposed plan that I have not reviewed in detail with H, and that there's been some briefings in general terms at the homeless committee, for us to solidify this and to require that they actually execute it. Because as I've been told multiple times, I understand everybody has input. Outside counsel has input. The county has input. But ultimately, we're responsible for actually making the decision. And that seems to be the obstacle that we can't overcome, is to get out of our own way and actually make decisions on how to clean up this area. And I've been extremely patient with the mayor, with city management staff. I know we're all, pulling extra duty with COVID, but everybody's still working and picking up a paycheck, and nobody seems to be able to do this correctly. So with that, you can take that off the screen and we can take questions and comments from the council. Councilmember Bredfield, who's a member of our homeless committee, and then Councilmember Chavez.
Yes. First of all, I want to commend your efforts, Council President Arias. I know that's frustrating to deal with this situation, and it's been going on for a long time. I think we all understand that. A couple of general comments and then get back to specifically Santa Clara. I mean, you outlined, which clearly homeless encampments involve shootings and violent crimes and drugs and fires. Our fire department has talked about, I think it's a 70 some odd % increase in homeless fires. We have a problem in that the CDC has given the excuse for elected officials in the state level and frankly local level to not move encampments because somehow that spreads COVID. I don't know how that all the garbage we see in those pictures aren't tremendous health hazards and safety hazards and fire hazards. We have, we talked a lot about recently about systemic problems. I don't think we can ignore the fact that state legislatures and state laws like, propositions that passed 4757, AB 109, releasing 10,000 criminals, having zero bail. this is results in more homeless and more encampments and more violence and more drugs and that's what we're witnessing in our city, and that's what we're witnessing in cities all across California, and we can't ignore that. I mean, that's a part of what is generating and continuing to drive this. Homeless encampments don't work. I mean, people want to say we should leave homeless encampments. This is what you get. This is what you get when it's ignored. It festers, it builds, and the problems just get worse. We see it on Santa Clara, we see it in our districts, and we see it all along the highways. And ignoring the problem only makes the problem worse. But it's a problem that has to be dealt with on a state level, has to be dealt with on a local level. You know, we talk about homeless task force. You know, we have a homeless task force. There's 5 or 6 officers. When we had Dyer, when he was the chief, come before us, he said he needed 20 or 25 homeless task force officers. We do. We need it. We don't need to defund it or remove it. We need to increase it. We need to find places for these people to stay, but we need to make it clear that these encampments aren't okay. They're not they shouldn't be tolerated, because all they are breeding grounds for unhealthy conditions, unsanitary conditions, crime, and all the rest. And so I sympathize about Santa Clara. We've got to clean that up. It has to be cleaned up. And so do all the encampments along the highways. We should not ignore any encampments. We should not allow any encampments because once you do, they build, they fester, and it's a detriment throughout our entire city. And those people need help. And they also need, some of them need law enforcement intervention because they're committing crimes, violent crimes and fires and assaults and rapes and drug addiction going on there. So it's a complex problem, but it cannot be ignored. And so I want to do everything to support you with Santa Clara, and I want to support all of our districts in cleaning up all of the encampments. And Caltrans shouldn't get a pass. And their lame and pathetic excuse that they don't have enough in their budget to maintain the embankments and highways and keep them clean is absurd. And so all of this excuse, all of this ignoring of what is driving all of this, we can clean Santa Clara, but if we don't address the other issues, we'll just have more Santa Claras. It'll come back, and it'll be just like it is all along the highways and in other parts of the district. But you can be assured I support efforts to clean up Santa Clara and to change that. Nobody should have to deal with that, and that should not be allowed in our city. And all it's done, as you've witnessed over the year, because we haven't done anything really to solve the problem, is it's just festered.
Thank you, council member. And just a reminder that Santa Clara is actually a residential neighborhood, and there's people living there.
Yeah.
Councilmember Chavez.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of years ago, there were a number of investors that came to Fresno, and they came to downtown specifically. I think they were looking at building a Bass Pro Shop location downtown. And I remember as staff member having this conversation with one of them where the first visual that they got from going to downtown Fresno was that exit there on Ventura when they drove right past that. And after they saw that, they were like, hell no, we're not going to invest down here. This is not going to be the visual that our customers are going to see when they come here. And so, you know, I know we keep talking in circles, but I want to be very specific. And I guess I'll be the jerk to ask this question to H. H, what has been the issue with getting this place cleaned up? Is it that you don't have the resources? Is it that your requests to our sanitation department are not being followed? I'm trying to understand that in the most simplest form, because to me, and maybe I'm just too simple, like cleaning up is not a very difficult thing to do on a street. So what's the problem?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Chavez. The problem is that this is our largest, most entrenched, and longest lasting encampment. And in Fresno's history, we had other more significant, more toxic encampments. We've addressed those. we live under a set of laws, including Administrative Order 623. And we have pursued that across the city. And Santa Clara pre-COVID was much more, well, it wasn't acceptable in any sense of the word, but it was much cleaner. It has become, just as Council President Arias laid out, it has become our most significant, unhealthy and dangerous encampment. And I appreciate Council President's statement that these components here form a plan that can get us to where we need to go. We need your support. We need your approval of this plan, support for Public Works, PD, and sanitation availability for the plan. This plan can move ahead. We will need to bring some contracts to you all, which we will soon, for outreach, housing, transportation, and security services. And then the city attorney has designed a good neighbor district, which is a best practice in other places, which I believe could be a significant game changer. Those things together, and all of the CBOs working together as stakeholders, along with the business owners in Chinatown. It's very important that we include those and that this district run from Chinatown to 41. So your approval of this plan will, and I have no problem coming back on a regular basis and reporting results as we move ahead together.
So H, help me understand. H, help me understand this. So right now we have a pile of trash there at that location. You put in the word to get, city dump trucks to show up, and does that not happen? Do the dump trucks get there and then they're not allowed to clean up? I'm trying to understand this, and I'm being a little pushy because I'm having a really hard time understanding how it's hard to clean a street up, H.
No, actually, the streets have been cleaned, but it goes in cycles. And as a result of those roll-offs being there, there's a huge amount of illegal dumping going on. That's one of the reasons that this is this is sort of like a Rubik's Cube. And so taking the step under an emergency order to shut down those streets is going to not only eliminate vehicular drug traffic, vehicular human trafficking, but also the illegal dumping. The sanitation department has actually put down roll-offs. They come out with a claw to pick up large piles of materials. And in addition to that, most recently, they've distributed 30 residential bins that are regularly picked up. 3 weeks ago, our outside legal counsel walked those streets with me and said, along with our sanitation department and the POV, this is the best that it's been in 6 months. And then almost the next week, it was right back to where it was. So to answer your question, Councilmember Chavez, there are rooted issues here that are going to take systemic solutions. And the plan that I've outlined, if we follow it through consistently, will address those issues.
So these trash collection efforts have been going, but what you're saying is that it's not enough?
Yes.
Why don't we do more?
Follow the plan.
Yeah, H, I'll go to Member Carbasi and then Soria. But council, I like to just make a motion to give direction to staff. I recognize there's a short-term and a long-term plan. The short-term, I think, has been delayed too long, and I'd like to give direction to direct the city to clean up Santa Clara within the next 2 weeks.
Second. I'll second, yeah.
All right, Council Member Soria and then Carbasi.
Yeah, no, I echo some, the similar sentiments that were stated by my colleagues. I think that this is all of our problem. It's not just Councilmember Arias's problem. And so we got to move a little faster. I think that we've been too complacent and we've used the excuse of COVID for too long. And the issue is that it's gone out of control. And we can't delay any further action. And so if it means that we have to do double the cleanup so that it's consistent and we can make a dent in all the garbage that is piling up there, then so be it. We need to do it. I think that it's a public health concern, especially when you have sewer flooding in the streets amongst, other human feces and so forth. It is, a public health concern that can get out of control if we don't act quicker. So I'm supportive, Councilmember Arias. But beyond that, I think that it is a reminder to us that we need to move quickly when it comes to developing more temporary housing opportunities. We are hearing that we expect 1,000 more people that are out in the streets than last year. So that means that we have to build more temporary housing in an expeditious manner so that we can get folks off the streets. Counter to what, maybe the homeless task force has said, that only 1.6% of people want help. You can ask every provider in the city that as soon as the temporary shelters are open, they are filled within a 24-hour period. So people want the help. It is clear. So we need to move expeditious beyond just the cleanup in getting these motels converted and figuring out other mechanisms to create housing opportunities for those that are experiencing homelessness right now, and ensure that we prevent additional homelessness to happen given the economic situation that many of our families are facing as a result of COVID. Thank you.
Councilmember Carbalsi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so a couple of months ago, Councilmember Redfield and I made a move so that a significant portion of our CARES Act dollars are invested in some of our most vulnerable neighborhoods. I talked earlier about reinvesting in our economy and stimulating the economy, but the idea is stretching the dollar. So clearly, because of COVID, CDC rules and all these things, we clearly can justify a need to clean up this area. So if it's a matter of resources, I'm kind of like Councilmember Chavez. I'm having a very difficult time understanding why we can't solve this problem. Do we need to dedicate money to resources that can not only be used today, but also can be used a year from now or 2 years from now to help this problem? Fully justifiable under the CARES Act. What's the problem? I mean, why can't we solve this problem?
Council, last year I was told, or last fiscal year, I was told there was no money to clean up the garbage. So the budget included $250,000 in the sanitation to clean up that area. Now I'm being told we got to go through an RFQ process, which we're not doing for any of these matters, right? So the field goal keeps on moving, which is why we're here and why I have to, bring the whole council on the ring of liability, because it just seems like a very frustrating point. And I recognize that staff is busy. I recognize that H has been working on the homeless matters and the hotels and shelters, but we have allowed this health and human crisis to go to the bottom of the list of urgent matters for all the departments that have a hand in it. So that's my frustration, and I don't think they have to wait for the normal bureaucratic process to play its course. I think I hope that there's a clear message of urgency, and for us to get it done, especially when we have the homeless residents and the providers are the ones asking for this help. We're not simply imposing our solution. So I would like us to press pause on this master plan until you can first demonstrate that we can clean up a street and a sidewalk.
Council President, just have a question for legal counsel. Given that we're in the middle of a pandemic and this seems to be a public health crisis, do we have to go through the normal process, city attorney, or can we just immediately deploy some sort of an agreement to have that clean if city resources can't do that right now?
If it's related to COVID and, for example, moving people to motels and cleaning up, we can do it immediately.
Okay, because to me, if we can't get this part right here, then that's not really very confident in the rest of the city, right? I mean, we've been having this conversation over and over, and it just seems like it doesn't get done. And I share that frustration because that is ground zero. And if we're really trying to attract investment to downtown, that is a big deterrent for any potential investor that want to come in here and invest in our community. So I like if that's okay, President Arias, for City Council to come up with some guidelines on how we can expedite this as quickly as possible.
Yep, that would be good. And then just as a bigger conversation, council, in our work on the COVID funds, we did set aside $4.5 million for the homeless efforts. We do have a record amount of federal and state money for the homeless. So the reason we're going to have a workshop on the homeless next week is because I think it's important for the full council to understand, of all the millions of dollars that we have received and we have put out, what impact has it had? And what are we going to do with the rest of the money that has been set aside specifically for the homeless population and to try and mitigate this? Because I think, although we have a strong homeless committee and myself, Bredefield and Soria, I think it's important for us as a council to see the full wide spectrum of resources and not simply respond to a request from the county of Fresno who wants $2 million or $1 million for this or that. Like, we have to have a full and clear picture of the whole conditions that we're in. With that, if that's the conclusion, we can move on to the last item of the agenda.
Council President.
You have the floor.
Thank you. H, I think you have one of the most difficult jobs in the city of Fresno. And what I hear and see over my tenure, because we have a terrible problem, maybe not to the magnitude of Santa Clara, but we go through this day in and day out. My chief of staff and staff, we're battling this every day. And I said earlier, the bicycle unit came in, helped us out, et cetera, et cetera. But what for me, the overall view is we have a subcommittee, get it together, get that program forward. I like what H just said, let's vote it in. So then the next question is financing, and then we have to have the proper staff, et cetera. But it seems to me, though, each time we do something like this, at least in my district, behind the old Marie calendars, they set up, we go in, we offer services, we give them notice, we clean up, and they move back in faster than we can move out. That seems to be what's happening at Santa Clara as well. So the population is growing. We have our limitations by the federal government, by the state government, by the governor's office. There's so many things that you can and can't do that it really makes it difficult to expeditiously take care of this. So it's a balancing act, and it's difficult. So we're doing the best we can. H, please keep up the good work. Subcommittee, we had all these contracts and agreements earlier today, so I'm sure you can come up with the program quickly. And if not, let's implement what H has suggested to us, and let's quit talking about it. Let's get busy. Thank you.
With that, Council Vice President, I'd like to just reaffirm the motion on the floor. It's to direct staff to come back within 2 weeks, clean up with the cleanup of the Santa Clara Street, whatever service contracts, safety contracts, and sanitation contracts are necessary for them to execute them and clean up Santa Clara within the next 15 days. There's been seconded. Let's do roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefield?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yes.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio? President Arias?
Yes. All right, the last item of the council is to approve voting a delegate to the upcoming League of California Cities annual conference, which will be Friday, October 9th, 2020. And my understanding is the conference will be virtual. So I need a motion to assign myself with the delegate of Councilwoman Soria in case I can't make the virtual meeting and participate in that annual League of California Cities conference.
So moved.
All right. Second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefield?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Aye.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio? President Arias?
Yes. All right, meeting is adjourned at 5:14. Gary, we made it in time so we can watch.
Get the popcorn. Hey, one thing though, Miguel, who's going to read his speech for him?
President Trump is. All right, guys. Thank you all, ladies. Thank you. Thank you for the long meeting, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
President.